Hello, friends. Hello. Welcome to Starry Wisdom Sunday, aka 2 weeks until Dunk and Egg, the TV show, aka Night of the Seven Kingdoms. Let the hype begin. We're in the new year. Here it comes. It's gonna be here in just a hot second. So we're gonna talk about some Targaryen history today, kind of leading up to Night of the Seven Kingdoms. We'll be skipping about through different generations, Targaryen family drama, and highlighting some of the quirkier and more mysterious Targaryens, as well as the VIPs. So this will be a fun stream if you ever wanted to know about Targaryens that became maesters or went over to Essos and became ladies of the night in Braavos, the courtesans. There's all kinds of little stories we're going to talk about. And when I say we, I'm talking about me and my guest, Estella Graves. Everyone say hello. Many of you will know her, I have found. I gave a little hype post a couple days ago, and several people were like, oh yes, I know about her.
Oh, great.
As
Wonderful.
you can see, cosplay extraordinaire, but also
Thank you.
Song of Ice and Fire analyst. So you can check out her channel. It is linked in the description below, Estella Graves. She just put out a Shiera Seastar video, which is fire. And I thought, so, well, it looked like you had the blue and green eyes there in the video. Did you wear contacts for that, or?
So no, for the video, it was actually video editing. I decided to, take the laborious effort to go, scene by scene, frame by frame, and edit them in. And it took an extra 3 hours, but I feel like it was worth it in the end. So maybe in the future I will get colored contacts just to save the time on that. But yeah, for now it is just some good old DaVinci Resolve. So.
Well, it's interesting because apparently you could do what the editors of Game of Thrones could not. Somehow you were able to color everyone's eyes, the magical colors of the story. I guess that was too much for HBO. They did not have the time and dedication that you have to this series. So if that isn't an endorsement to check out the video and the channel, I don't know what else to say. But thank you for joining me. And
yes, of course.
We are getting ready for Night of the Seven Kingdoms. Both of us are making video. I put out a Baylor Breakspear video this week. It was one of those, the YouTube algorithm was not pleased by it. It didn't show it to people. So in case you're watching and you didn't know, I put out that video.
Yeah, and I saw it and I thought it was really great. I learned things I did not know. So I feel like that's always a plus, especially for, us nerds that are so involved in this world.
So this is sort of the genesis of the stream. We were talking this week about how we like to read Fire and Blood. And basically, it's the way that we've done it on this channel many times where you sort of slow down and, you get Fire and Blood is a summary. So you get a lot of details thrown at you. You may only learn 3 or 4 things about a character and then they die and you're like, well, what was their life like? But we found that if you slow down and sort of imagine, fill in the blanks, George is thinking about a heart in conflict for all of these characters. He's just not really giving us like a POV to get the full exploration of it. But if you slow down and read it, you can really draw a lot out of it. And you can see where future TV shows could be spun out of this drama. Like, to use House of the Dragon, we read Fire and Blood. I guess it was Princess and the Queen first, right? But yeah, I mean, you could read that stuff with Harwin Strong and Rhaenyra, and we get all these rumors, and it's like we don't know which one is true, but you can see the drama that's like sitting in there to be had. So,
oh, for sure. And then, and there are these little moments that don't quite line up or don't quite make sense, and you have to take a step back and say, what's really going on here? Is this a little bit of unreliable narration? Is this being misremembered throughout the histories? Are the people involved actually, being a bit deceptive? What's going on? I think that's the fun of it. It's the, more speculative side, but it's, kind of what you have to do with Fire and Blood.
And so basically that's what we're going to do today. We're going to freewheel through the Targaryen family tree and just pick out some of our favorite ones to talk about. If you guys in the chat, to bring the chat into this, but, want to point us at certain people, we can. Real quick though, my new studio has been named Planky Town by the chat. So thanks for that. And I can't beat the allegations. Planky Town it is. So
That's great.
yeah. Yeah, this is obviously a new studio, new show, new year. I just figured I'd mix it up a little bit. So I'll show it off in the Blackfire Rebellion video that I'm going to put out this week. And obviously I am embracing my laughing stormness here. To skip over the obvious, I guess. So yeah, next evolution. I've been wearing the very rinky-dink little antler headband thing for years, and then saw a laughing storm on the new show and realized I had to up my game. So here I am.
It works though. It works. I knew immediately. So
it's definitely not a guitar strap. It worked perfectly, honestly. I looked at belts first, but the belts are not soft on the inside. The guitar straps, this is a $100 Taylor Guitars leather guitar strap. This was like I splurged because I had to wear it on my head, and so we're giving away all the secrets here today. But yeah, the Red Bull is powering me. It's starting to flow. Yeah, here it comes. All right, so let's start with the conquest. We will definitely get to Bloodraven and Shiera Seastar before the stream is over, obviously. But I am interested. We do know first of all, I have forgot, is the Conquest going to be a show or a movie? A show, right?
I think it's going to be a show, yeah. And I know there were like some concerning-ish rumors like a while ago as to like the direction they were going in, but I think those have kind of been put to rest.
I think that was mostly baseless speculation that people got worked up about on the internet. I know
As
it's
usual.
crazy,
Surprising,
but no,
yeah.
Mattson Tomlin is on the internet, and he's given a couple of opinions that people just sort of, I think, ran with a little bit. But he seems like a lively sort.
Oh, yeah. And I think anyone who is passionate and excited about this world, that is a plus. That's a good thing. And I mean, we've even seen some of, this people already getting up in arms over Night of the Seven Kingdoms. And as far as I'm concerned, I think the rollout of this show has been the best it can be. And I'm very faithful and very, looking forward to it. I really don't have any concerns. So
I'm excited about Night of the Seven Kingdoms. I'm excited about a Conquerors show because the thing is, the Conquest is very, it's all historical accounts. It's all battles, and they don't really tell us much. There's like a paragraph that's like, Visenya was cold and Rhaenys was hot, and Aegon liked Rhaenys better. And that's about it. Visenya starts to take on this mystique as Fire and Blood goes on, and we're like, oh, she's an old sorcerer witch Targaryen. Okay, that's kind of hardcore. And she also raised Maegor, so you have to put some of Maegor's early. I mean, they burned a bunch of castles together with their dragons, so there's that.
Oh, for sure. And then you get into the, all of the speculation over, the two sons of, are they even Aegon's sons based on their temperaments and how they act? And it's because people cannot fathom that, someone like him would have sons like this. And so I think, with Fire and Blood, it's very much written in like, they just kind of went place to place and succeeded every time except for, Dorne. But with that, though, it's like, yeah, so how are you going to expand that, slow it down? Look at what actually happened, look at the internal conflict and the actual relationship outside of just a couple lines.
The chat is ripping. So they want Take Me Down to Planky Town to the melody of Funky Town, which can be obliged. Absolutely, we can do that. And here with 1,000 Voices says, oh, this is who David stood me up for. Sorry, Sean. Sorry. You need to work on your Shiera Seastar cosplay, and maybe you'd get more invitations. Sean's on here every week. He's a funny man. So yeah.
Next live, we all show up as Shiera, just Night of 1,000 Shieras. We're all just in blonde wigs.
Sean will. He will too. That's the thing, is he will. He'll put on makeup and contacts. He'll do the whole thing. He's not afraid to go there.
I'm going to like a little fan premiere for Night of the Seven Kingdoms, and I was debating. I was like, do I show up like in a Targ wig or do I show up bald? Do I go full egg? I feel like that it feels the most fitting and the most unhinged.
Well, that was my joke when I was comparing the arc of Stannis and Daenerys, because I think Daenerys is going to come to Dragonstone, be declared Azor High, probably attack King's Landing, probably a lot of wildfire will happen, and then she'll be like, oh, wait, I shouldn't do that, and then she'll get a letter from Jon Snow and go north. I just think the whole thing is like foreshadowing, and I said, they got the same haircut, and then we flashed a picture of Dany in the pyre with the bald head and Stannis bald, and I was like, yeah, same person.
Yep. They got that family resemblance going on. So distant
just
family.
Really similar temperament and demeanor. No, just the path. It's just the plot arc, which is why it's cleverly disguised, because you wouldn't think to look there. So, but so you mentioned Aegon's children. I did want to start with the Conqueror generation.
Yeah, we can start with them. Yeah, we can.
You would be forgiven for not having watched all of my videos. However, I will ask you: did you see one called the Visenya's Unnatural Conception of Maegor?
I did not, but I'm aware of this. I'm aware of this concept and this theory,
totally,
which I like. I think it's fun. So.
Yeah, basically, it wasn't my theory. It was just me taking a stab at it. I did run wild with it. I went to the whole Visenya gecko theory, parthenogenesis. Do you know about that stuff?
Is this the concept of certain lizards like reproducing basically asexually?
Yeah, kind of like cloning themselves almost. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So are we thinking that she did some type of strange Targaryen blood magic and in essence had this child? Okay. Yeah, I like that idea. And I feel like, too, I get a little bit weird about the Shrikes and the lizard people of being like, no, what if this actually is true at the edge of the world? What if these are Valyrian experiments and remnants? So I'm here for this theory. I like this.
Yeah, well, you can check it out if you want. I actually I read the Wikipedia on parthenogenesis like 8 times until I thought I understood. I only got corrected mildly in the comments, so I'm mostly, it's weird. It's weird, and there's different versions of it, but basically it seems like when George is implying that Visenya may have used, because like they waited so long, that's where the theory starts. Like they're in their 20s and 30s. And they still haven't had any kids. And it's like, you conquered Westeros. You've got this dynasty. They have the same concerns that every other royal family does. Where are the heirs? Yeah. And they're nowhere forever. And then finally, Rhaenys conceives. And obviously, there's all the rumors about Rhaenys and the singers and that. And really, it's not even, Rhaenys is a floozy. It's more like, did she finally seek out a surrogate father?
Yeah, it was Aegon not able to, were they not able to have children together for whatever reason?
The black dragons are radioactive like the oily stone. That's the heart of it. You sit on a black dragon, you're not going to have any children.
Interesting. Okay.
No, I don't think that's it. I used to throw that out as a maybe, but I do think it's just more likely that just a George irony, like Aegon was shooting blanks. And so Rhaenys sought out a surrogate father, and Maegor turned out really weird and incapable of having children of his own.
Yes.
Because he was basically a Visenya clone. He didn't have the right chromosome, pairing or whatever. And the whole thing is that Tyenna of the Tower comes along, and Maegor's like, he was trying for like 14 years with this Cerise Hightower, and they didn't have any kids. It wasn't really until Tyenna comes along that we at least start having the lizard babies and the stillbirths and the things like that. So it seems to me like Tyenna maybe is talking to Visenya, and Visenya's like, you're going to have to use blood magic to make children with this guy because I use blood magic. And so it's basically Tyenna's trying to do the same thing.
And I think a lot, too, about how it says when Tyenna, when she came to Westeros, when she was, brought over after Maegor was kind of dying, I think it says like Visenya did not like her, but did give over the care immediately to her. So I think it could have been like a game recognized game, like, oh, you know what's going on here, you know how to do all this stuff, this witchy blood magic. I may not like you, I may feel a little bit threatened by you, but I recognize we're both on the same page with this. And then you start getting these dragon babies, and I never see anyone want to talk about Maegor's dragon babies, but it is very much a thing. And it's like, is it because of how he was conceived? Is it because of basically how he was maybe resurrected and brought back? I mean, there's so many possibilities.
So I think that what happened is basically we know the Targs must have some amount of reptilian DNA that's been magically infused. I have different theories about how that may have happened. They're horrifying and based on aliens, but the point is, well, actually, we should talk about that in a minute, maybe. But the point is, they clearly have reptilian DNA, and so if it was that Visenya cloned herself per se, maybe Maegor's got a more concentrated amount of it, and so he's probably couldn't have any children at all without magic. And if you use magic, the best you can get are these lizard babies and stuff. I think that's what George is implying. So
Exactly. I, a long time ago, did a series on all of the magical evolution and all these kind of connecting branches that George is doing. And I had a meme in it that was like, on one hand, you get possibly a better ability to bond with dragons, but you give me, your weird dragon babies that you have every once in a while, with this just strange genetic blood splicing that they, I think, clearly did at some point as this trade-off. But yeah, it leaves us in a weird place at almost the very beginning of this reestablishment of the Targaryen dynasty, where it's like immediately we then have questions of, are these even Aegon's children? Is the whole dynasty based on, really kind of bastardy and magic, so.
Well, that's what's great is it's a strange feminist statement in the end. It's like, oh no, the Targaryen dynasty, because you got the whole prophecy, my blood, blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, your sister's blood, but close enough, right? Same thing, really. So,
for sure, yeah. So.
That's funny. And, you mentioning the whole like unholy pact vibes of like, oh, you get this power, but we're going to take children occasionally. George loves this. It's very much a Fae folklore thing. The others do it. I think the Deep Ones are doing it. I think the Seastone chair is basically a baby altar for the Deep Ones that the Ironborn kings sit on now, ironically, not realizing that it implies them as sacrifices, but...
Ooh, that's a very fun kind of layer of irony. I've been kind of, married to the idea of like all of these oily blackstone remnants are these, echoes of previous long nights and this magical corruption. But I had never really figured out how the Seastone chair connects into it other than being connected to the Deep Ones. So I like that idea of it being this magical altar that is a level of irony for the Ironborn. That feels very fitting.
It's pretty great. And if you picture White Tree, the weirwood, and the Seastone chair, you can really see the parallel, okay? Because the Kraken tentacles definitely are meant to parallel the weirwood roots. George does that directly when we have a tree in the river with Arya and the Hound. It's the one that wrecks the boat. And the roots are like the Kraken tentacles. And then there's other symbolism behind it too. But... because it's grasping.
Well, not to mention, too, like Naga's teeth. I mean, there's so much weirwood imagery already all around this, so.
Right. So if you look at the White Tree weirwood, we got the white tree with the monster face, and that we find a baby in the mouth. And you look at the Seastone chair, and it's basically a monster face with tentacles. And what's in the sacrifice spot? It's, the Ironborn kings. But of course, they say the first Ironborn or the first men that became Ironborn found it on the shore. So what's it doing on the shore? Well, that's where you'd put sacrifices with the Deep Ones, obviously. So
yeah, they'd come and they'd grab their sacrifices. So
this is not, okay.
Speaking of oceanic, beings and lore. I mean, I know you wanted to talk a little bit about Orys Baratheon and the Storm King and all that.
Let's do it. Yeah, the chat is making fun of me for talking about Deep Ones already.
No, I really like the Deep Ones. I have this picture of me where I'm like Melisandre, and it's that It's Always Sunny meme where I'm like this, and it's like all the connected things, because I think they're in the background and they're not going to show up, but they're like connected to everything, and I do think they're real.
Oh, you're going to fit in great here. This is so wonderful.
Perfect. Yes.
Yeah, that's basically what I tell people. Every 10 minutes, I had made a video called The Deep Ones Are Real. It's like an hour long. And every 10 minutes, I'm like, it doesn't mean that the Deep Ones are going to take over the end of the story. They're just in the background because George really likes them.
Exactly. I have so many comments that are people saying, well, no, it's just because the maesters don't know about the edges of the world. And but I'm like, no, it's because all of these creatures are real. The eyeless cave dwellers are real. The Deep Ones are real. They're all these different evolutionary branches.
They're real because George likes fun. Like, yes, why wouldn't they be real? It's
Exactly.
fantasy.
It's real because it is fantasy. Like, people really want it to not be fantasy. They want it to be, medieval fiction, but it is fantasy.
It's grimdark.
Yeah.
There's no magic.
Yeah. Hmm.
All right. Well, so yes,
Okay.
we'll come back to the sisters maybe, but let's talk about Orys and Argella.
Hmm.
The name Baratheon sounds like it could be Valyrian. I noticed you put them on the maybe list of Valyrian houses with Coharies and one or two others. So it really is a total mystery. I guess it's just the previous generation. I forget what Aegon's dad's name is. I know he married a Velaryon.
Yes. Married to Velaryon. It's not Gaiman because he had a different Aegon, I believe. I think that was before. Because that was a couple generations back. I'm trying. Yeah, I'm sure the chat knows. I can also look it up.
It is a different
Aerion.
Aerion. Yeah, not the bright flame.
Hmm. But yeah, I like the idea that Orys and the Baratheons are a kind of, possibly bastard branch of House Targaryen. I think that interconnectedness then between them, kind of starting all the way from the beginning, feels very thematically important and kind of poignant. So
The thing that stands out to me is when it says that Aenar Targaryen moved with his entire household, including his slaves. Now we know that obviously the Valyrians, they had the slaves that they fed to the mines and stuff like that, thousands of people and genocide and all that. But they also had the Roman type of slavery system where a lot of the tutors and bankers and just a lot of regular working class jobs are going to be slaves, but they're tied to households. So when it says that he moved with all his slaves, we know that there's not slavery is not legal or kosher, you might say, in Westeros. So I've always assumed that everyone he brought with him would essentially become small folk now. So when it says the Targaryens have always dallied with the small folk on Dragonstone, a lot of those people may have bloodlines going back to Valyria, even if they're not Valyrian looking. Does that make sense?
that makes sense, yeah. And I mean, it feels kind of like a loophole in the way that the Ironborn have their thralls. And it's like, well, it's not slavery, but it like kind of is. And I believe too, I don't know if it's canon confirmed, but that Coharis, they were the blacksmiths for the Targaryen family. They were eventually granted Harrenhal for a while. So I wouldn't be surprised too if they also came over with them in the household, but were like indentured to them in that way, you know?
That's probably the perfect comparison. Because he wasn't, maybe or it could be that he was a nobody, but he was just really cool and Aegon liked him a lot. And so made him his right-hand man or whatever. But Hand of the King, that's like,
Yeah.
Aegon only trusted a couple people. It's like his dragon, his sisters, and Orys Baratheon. And he wasn't like paranoid. He did the whole thing where like if he gave mercy to his enemies if they knelt and all that stuff. But like, yeah, as far as trust, that's kind of why, that's how they paint him in the world of Ice and Fire and Blood. Like, oh, we don't know a lot about him because he had a very tight circle. So he's just a big question mark, really.
It is, yeah, and you're right. It wasn't like a paranoia because I mean, even Visenya is the one that has to kind of push him to get a Kingsguard. She's like, "Hey, you're vulnerable," and he's kind of like, "No, it's fine." It's not like he's, I think it really is just more that yeah, he had a close circle.
So then the cool thing about Orys is, I don't know if the cool thing is the right way to say, but the interesting, compelling thing is really Argella Durrandon as much as Orys. The Storm Kings, Argilac Durrandon, obviously going to be an epic like season 1 character, maybe season 2. I haven't plotted the whole thing out, but I mean, his opposition to Aegon is what kind of kicks off him and Black Heron, basically telling Aegon to piss off. Orys Baratheon is the one that sends, he kills Aegon's emissary, does he not? What, does he cut his hands off or his head or something like that?
I think it's, yeah, I think it's hands or head. And then I think that's paralleled with him later, right?
Yes, right. He loses a hand to the Will of Will when he gets his army caught in the Bone Way in like 7 AC or something like that. Yeah. Maybe Orys was for Aegon what Robert was for Ned. Yeah, it's the power relationship is flipped, but you could picture that sort of dynamic. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if Aegon was like arrogant or flamboyant or hot-headed, like that would be written down. But the fact that nothing ever is tells you that he kind of played it close to the vest, handled his business, probably had that mask, the Rob the Lord mask that he puts on. And so, yeah, not many people really saw the real him. So that's kind of the image we get of Aegon. It's like this tightly controlled tactician, whatever. So we'll get back to Orys and Argella in a minute, but I'm just dying to ask you before I forget. Aegon's dream, not just Aegon's dream, right? All three of them must have had it, right?
I was just going to bring this up,
Okay.
because I was going to say one of the only, fairly more recent insights that we have gotten into like Aegon's character is that little like breadcrumb trail that George has left of like, oh, well, maybe, Aegon's dream, maybe his reason to conquer Westeros wasn't just on a whim, maybe, that thing that's kind of implying. So you think that all three siblings had the prophetic dragon dream, or do you think that they were just all aware of it?
I think that what George is showing us about dreams and prophecy is that major events like manifest in the dreamscape. Like Patchface saw the Red Wedding, the Undying saw the Red Wedding, Ghost of Highheart saw the Red Wedding. And this conquest is such a big thing. The prophecy, I mean, it's not just it's really a prophecy about the end of the world involving the prince that was promised, which seems to be an older prophecy. So I would just think the most interesting story would be that they all had it. It might even be that like Visenya had it and it got labeled Aegon's dream because he's the conqueror. That would be interesting too. But I feel like they have such a shared purpose. They're all moving one mind really throughout the entire thing. It makes the most sense that they all had the dream and were all moved by it,
They really do write them all as like a well-oiled machine. Like they're this kind of unified unit, and the only like even like inkling of strife that we get is that just Aegon preferred Rhaenys over Visenya, really. But it's like, it doesn't even seem like they had animosity, at least the way it's written. It seems like they were all kind of one mind, one purpose. So I think that would make sense that they were all on the same page.
Yeah, so that's one of the most interesting things I'd like to see what Mattson Tomlin does with that. Obviously, it's some people had a problem with George dropping that, like, oh, this makes their conquest and everything the Targaryens did that was crazy is justified now, and I really don't agree with that. I feel like it's the normal responsibility that a ruler has to be a good ruler, but it's just more important now to maintain the dynasty and maintain Westeros in a condition that's going to be ready to fight the others. So I feel like it makes it worse when people like Maegor, or Aegon the Unworthy rule poorly. It's like you're playing with your ability, to be ready to fight the others, which is even worse than just being a bad king. Yeah,
your ability to basically save the world and ensure that humanity continues on. I think, we do have to remember that it is a fantasy story, a fantasy world that is all leading to these events. So it's like, of course, there is going to be a thing that ties it all back together in a way that makes sense. I don't know. I don't see that critique. I think it makes perfect sense for there to be a reason for them to conquer the Seven Kingdoms outside of, we just think we should unify it and conquer it,
And it really makes the Torrhen Stark stuff make so much sense. Like the Brandon Snow, all of it. Like, yeah, go ahead. I've made a whole video about it. So what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, I was just agreeing with you. I think because we have, again, in Fire and Blood, we're just presented with way more questions than answers, and one of them is like, why did he kneel? And it fills it in a little bit more, and it doesn't outright answer it, because George doesn't like to fully confirm these things sometimes, but it does start to make more sense, and you can piece together, this story that is happening. So I think it gives way more context to it and makes sense. But it's this layer that, ironically in the story, none of the characters understand or pick up on, but we as the readers, that's the point. That's our job to do. So
let's okay. So what I observed about this exchange is that it was Brandon Snow who went across and parlayed before the agreement was made and Torrhen knelt. Brandon Snow is almost certainly the one making the weirwood arrows in Bran's vision. The tall, dark youth, tall, pale youth, dark-eyed youth, whatever it was, making the weirwood arrows. So he is offering to his brother to sneak across the river and single-handedly slay 3 dragons with his weirwood arrows. So my first question for you is it just a matter of weirwood arrows can be aimed with magic? And that's what Bloodraven is doing at Redgrass Field. They're just guided missiles, so we can guarantee that he's going to hit the dragon in the eye, and it's going to kill the dragon because it's going to enter his brain, and that's really all you have to do is shoot it through the eye. Or do weirwood arrows have like magic properties, kind of like obsidian and White Walkers, and that it's actually there's a magical component to the weirwood arrow?
See, I like that second idea a bit more,
Okay.
because I feel like the weirwoods themselves feel very magical, very magically inclined. There's just so much, magical imagery around them, and this kind of like petrified nature of them. And, whenever I think about them too, I think about like the inverse black bark trees and what's going on with those trees. Like, it doesn't feel like they're just normal trees. So I wouldn't be surprised if, with their connection to the children of the forest and the old gods, if there is, some level of a magical property to them. Because, we do already know they're magical. They're these, almost like conduit spots to see through time. So I don't think you'd be able to do this with any type of a normal tree. I think it is very important that it is weirwood trees.
So I'm kind of 50-50 on that. I like the idea that arrows can kill dragons. I think that just being able to guide them would be enough, though. Unless the dragons are huge, a good-sized arrow through the eye is going straight into the brain, and that would conceivably kill the dragon. What I find interesting is the idea that there would be an opposite. Like if there's obsidian that's this, secret kryptonite for the White Walkers, if you will, shouldn't there be something like that for the dragons? I've wondered if it isn't Dawn, because Dawn potentially comes from the Great Empire of the Dawn, who also maybe created the Targaryens and the Dragon Bond and all that. And if you're going to create these monsters, maybe you want a way to kill the monsters. And potentially the Children of the Forest or their magic was used to create the White Walkers, and they're the ones that have the kill switch also. So you can sort of see a scenario where, they thought they could control the White Walkers with obsidian, but maybe they didn't plan for the Army of the Dead, which they don't have a way to really handle, or something like that. Not to get lost on Children of the Forest lore. But you can see why the Dawn could be a dragon killer sword. Plus, there's all those legends of dragon slayers. It's just such a trope. It's like, is there a sword that can slay dragons? If there is, it would be Dawn.
Oh, I think so, definitely. I think that makes a lot of sense. So just so I'm understanding, so your thought is that you're 50-50 on the thought that maybe the weirwood arrows have a magical kind of ability to kill dragons, or maybe they just have the ability to be magically guided, and that is enough to land where it needs to land, right? Okay.
Yes. Yeah. And because like Redgrass Field kind of tells you they can probably be guided with magic. That's what Bloodraven is doing. I also think that Quentin Ball, who was slain by a rando archer the night before Redgrass Field as he was drinking from a creek, like, rando archer, huh? Perfect shot, huh? Okay, Yeah.
Yeah. No, that is a good point. And yeah, it makes me think of I believe is it Aemon, the child of Jaehaerys, that is shot through the neck with a crossbow bolt. It's like, oh, if only those archers had these special arrows. Would have shot the right person. But that's getting way too down in the line. But
well, that's part of his death is part of the Maester conspiracy potentially. But okay, so this is good. This stream is evolving just the way I hoped. This is perfect. So
yes.
So Argella Durrandon, she is the daughter of Argilac Durrandon, who is just sounds like this great character. He's 60 and he's got old gray hair and he's just the definition of stubborn. The Baratheons tend towards either laughing or storm. Robert's got a mix. Lionel's a little more laughing than storm. And then we've got, Argilac. He is just all piss and vinegar, And so he dies in this epic battle, the last storm, and it's all rainy, and Meraxes can't fly, but she's, given hell on the ground and stuff. And then we get this whole story about Argella. And it sounds, it's a little, there's this sort of paternalistic thing where it's like, oh, she was brought out naked by her, the rest of her castle didn't want to fight and she did. And so they brought her out naked. But then Orys put his cloak around her, kind of Sansa-like or whatever. There's some sort of chivalry thing going on.
Yeah.
And then it's interesting to speculate on what kind of relationship they would have had, because Orys adopts all of the, regalia of the Storm Kings. So you can tell how heavy a cultural impact there was there.
Definitely. And I think, too, it does then kind of lend to the idea that maybe he was a bastard, because we see this a lot with, some of these Targaryen bastards, of them wanting to adopt their own identity, have their own sigil, have their own thing. So it kind of makes sense to me that then he'd be like, I'm taking up this mantle as this new Storm King. I'm adopting all of this. Like, this is my vibe now. And it sets me apart from, the rest of the Targaryens. So
that's a great point. Yeah, he didn't have a brand. So he took it up. I like to think that relationship is like, I mean, she sounds like her father's daughter. She's wants to keep up the fight, even though there's really no chance of winning. So that's just like a character building moment. If I was making this TV show, I would cast that person well, and I would run with the character, and that would make her a fan favorite. So hopefully they will do something like that.
Yeah, and it's interesting to have them both be kind of strong-willed in that way, because then it kind of leads the question of like, where did the Baratheons get it from them? Did they get it from Orys, or did they get it from her? Or is it kind of this combination of both, I also think it's interesting that with, the Storm King and with her, you kind of get these like echoes a little bit of their history, and everything, at the very kind of beginning of Aegon's conquest feels a bit, mystified and deified. So it kind of opens up that like, how much of this is true? How much of this is like this kind of almost, romanticized tropes that kind of fit into the line of, the Age of Heroes. Like, it kind of feels like reiterations of that, especially with this like chivalric, he's putting the cloak around her and all this stuff. It feels almost a little bit fairy tale in a way. So I think it'll be really interesting in the show, because it will be, in a way, demystifying a lot of that and making it a bit more human. But I think they still do have an opportunity to make it feel very fantasy,
Yeah, I agree with all of that. It will be interesting to see like, oh, what's the gritty, more convoluted truth here behind this. So, is she fighting in the battle beforehand? It seems like she might. At least as the battle gets desperate, she's not going to stay in the castle forever. She's at least throwing stuff off the wall. So
yeah, that would be great to see. I would
there
be
with a
here
bow
for
and
that.
arrow.
Yeah. So I feel like that would be very fun.
And then so as far as Rhaenys and Visenya goes, I guess some of the things that people were worried about is like, oh, are they going to make the sisters fight because there's nothing else to do?
That was my
I really
concern
don't
as
see a lot of
well,
that
but
implied in the narrative, simply because they both struggled to have kids for so long, but they never like formed rival factions at court or anything like that over it. So
No, I feel like that would be the easy way out of writing it, of just imbuing some random drama. But I don't think it'll go that way. If anything, too, it feels like, if anything, it was a little bit more Aegon and Visenya butting heads sometimes. But even then, like I said, they were still pretty unified. But it seems like both of them were very unified over their opinion of Rhaenys. They both really cared for her. So I don't see them fighting. I hope that's not the case. So
yeah, the Year of the Dragon's Wrath sounds absolutely like where Visenya and Aegon might have exchanged like 6 to 12 words a day while they're burning these castles, and then just having the quietest meals at a campfire at night, and like, which castles are we burning tomorrow? Sandystone, Hellholt, Vaith. All right.
Yep.
See you in the morning.
Exactly. Yeah. Of just they're both locked in. So
yeah. So yeah, that'll be interesting to see what happens there. But really, the more interesting stuff in Fire and Blood is really Aenys and Maegor. I did like 3 full Maegor streams, working through all of that history. I also did a Reign of Targaryen stream, which starts to overlap with some of the Maegor stuff. You know, I think we probably have a similar take as far as Maegor goes. Maegor did nothing wrong. People are kind of obnoxious and definitely wrong themselves. It's like, oh, he was misunderstood by the maesters. And there's just way too much stuff in there. Chiefly the massacre at Harrenhal of House Harroway, and then going to Harroway's town and massacring anybody that's like related to the Harroways. Like, that's not stuff that can be made up. They really did erase a whole... I don't know. It's not quite genocide when you erase a house, the Reigns of Castamere. It's like a mini... There is a word for it, but it's essentially like a mini genocide when you erase a whole house like that. So,
yeah, I mean, he was definitely an incredibly stern figure that stood on business. He got, I mean, say what you will about him, he got stuff done. He got stuff done to an extreme level, but he did get things done. And it made it so, historically he was not well loved. But you can't say that he did nothing and that he was lazy. He was always doing something.
So what's interesting is like you get this swing, right? Aenys is weak, and he obviously doesn't have what it takes to rule the Iron Throne in a feudal monarchy or whatever. A new one that was still not totally tamped down. And then you get this swing to Maegor, who gets stuff done, but in such a violent and chaotic fashion that by the time he dies, he's eroded all of his political power. And it's really only the fact that Rhaena, Alyssa Velaryon, Jaehaerys, and Alysanne are waiting there to give the entire realm this stable alternative. And so it just seems clear what George is showing us. It's like these different ways to rule, and then you end up with Jaehaerys and Alysanne. It's like, oh, just right. We show walk soft, carry a big stick. Something like that. Vermithor being the big stick.
Yeah, and it's not the only time that we get these comparisons. I feel like quite a bit. I mean, again, this is jumping ahead a bit, but I think about how Sarah Targaryen, when proposing that she marry multiple men, she compared herself. She said, Aegon the Conqueror had 3 wives, or maybe I'll be like Maegor. These two extremes of like what a Targaryen king should be, because Aegon is like deified almost as this like what a ruler should be, and then you have Maegor. And so it really is like a lot of the Targaryens, it feels like they fall on this spectrum, and unfortunately a lot of the times Maegor is slated at the end or remembered closer to the end, or on one end of the spectrum in terms of like extremity. So
it does make it chilling when Dany's like, I'm the blood of Aegon the Conqueror and Maegor the Cruel, and I think she is promising revenge against one of the Blood Riders that are worded Aroa, correct?
Yeah.
I forget which one. I get all their names confused. But.
Oh, yeah. I'm trying to remember.
Maego and Jaco, maybe?
I think so. Yeah. But yeah, she invokes both of them, and I see people use that quite a bit to say like, oh, she's gonna be mad and crazy, but I think it is again, it's that dichotomy, it's that talking about that spectrum of like the scale of Targaryen rulers, and the all that. So
since you brought up Dany,
we're just hopping all over. Yeah.
The most interesting thing that I did when I was spinning out after the end of Game of Thrones, and I was like, wait, that wasn't right. I went back and I read all of Dany's chapters consecutively, and I did a live stream with some friends after each book so we could sort of decompress all of her stuff. And, what really shifted for me the most, the thing that stood out to me the most was like, previously you hear people talk about her like, oh, she's got this Mysa mothering side, and then she's got her fire and blood dragon side, and which one is going to win out? And it's when I went back and looked, I was like, actually, no, all of her dragon stuff is actually vengeful mother goddess stuff. And so it's really all Mysa. And the only time she ever uses her dragons is to protect the weak. Literally. She is not using her dragons in like cruel or capricious ways. And she spends most of her time worrying about the collateral damage that either the Dothraki or the dragons would cause if they came to Westeros. So I was like, oh, this is all very consistent with mother goddess figures. And even like Aphrodite and Athena and all these other goddesses that she's being, based on loosely, they've all got wrathful sides too. Like every single one, especially, Kali and Parvati and some of the other Indian goddesses that he's drawing from.
Oh, for sure. And I feel like, especially with Daenerys, just threes being a constant in her story, we do see her embody, aspects of the mother, the maiden, and the crone. And, not even just in A Song of Ice and Fire, but like in real mythology, that triple goddess archetype. And so, yeah, I don't think it's like she's going to be one thing at the end. One thing is going to win out. I think there's going to be a lot more complexity to it because that's what George does.
Indeed. So we love Daenerys around here. And we're here for her burning everything inside the Black Walls in Volantis because that's coming.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I think that will be. Yeah, I was, my partner is reading these books for the first time, and I'm having to explain certain things of like, hey, this is who John Connington is, and he's like, oh, this character has grayscale instead of Jordan. I'm like, yeah. So once you kind of realize a lot of these plot lines and attributes were kind of just redistributed amongst the characters. I'm a very firm believer that Dany will be burning Volantis, and that's possibly what we got a little bit of in season 8 of the show. Is it'll be a different place, different time. Maybe she will eventually get over to King's Landing and wreak some havoc, but it'll be obviously very different. But that's, again, getting ahead of itself.
It's been so long since most of us read Dance for the first time, but everyone does have that moment of like, who are these people on this damn boat and why are we learning so much about them? And then it's a slow reveal. It's a lot more entertaining on the second read when you're sort of looking for the clues and when does Tyrion figure it out and all that stuff. But the first time it's a little just like, what? I love all the Fagon stuff, but
oh yeah, it's really fun too. I mean, it spurs a million theories. So I feel like we could talk about that endlessly. But yeah. So sorry, to get back to the point, we were talking about Maegor and Aenys, and then this kind of extreme aspect of both of them being rulers, and then how that leads into like Jaehaerys and Alysanne. So.
Yeah, so to me, like if I was making a TV show, that's a time period I would start with like Aegon's funeral. Maybe if the Conquerors show ends with that, I don't know. The Conquerors, that's what we forgot to talk about. Let's go back for that. The Conquerors show, like the conquest lasts 3 years.
Yeah.
Then it's all the way until 9 AC when Rhaenys dies. And then we've got a couple more years of the Dragon's Wrath, and then it's 13 AC when they sign the peace treaty with Dorne. And that is conceivably the end of the conquest. I think what they're going to do is just make it a 3-year time period and just move Rhaenys' death up to like 3 AC and then probably end. Maybe move the treaty up too so that there's a button on it. But you have to include that, right?
Oh, I would think so. I think, I mean, the concept of what is in the letter, that is a huge, bit of drama and mystery.
Do you have anything on that? Because that's...
I mean, I think what I have on that is just, it's the pretty basic theory that maybe she survived the fall, that she was being held, or that she had survived the fall for a short amount of time and then died or something. Because I think if she had fully survived, I think they would have tried to go and get her. But I mean, it must have been something very important regarding her for it to upset Aegon that much. That's what I think.
So why did he fly to Dragonstone and come back? What did he do there?
Oh, that's a great question. I don't know if I have any thoughts on that.
Because there's several parts to the mystery. One is like, what did he do flying to Dragonstone and coming back? That's the part that I have solved, I think. He went and used a glass candle to verify something. I strongly believe that the Targaryens have always had glass candles on Dragonstone. They literally have obsidian there. They are Valyrians. They would know how to make a glass candle. It's one thing for them not to have a dragon horn anymore or a suit of Valyrian armor. Like they just didn't save those things from the dooms. They don't have them. But like making a glass candle is basically just like lighting a piece of obsidian with some blood or whatever it is. So I strongly suspect that they would have candles. That would explain why he would go there and come back. Like he's not going to keep it in King's Landing, maybe. So because he doesn't have the Red Keep yet, they don't have a secure place for it. But Dragonstone, somewhere in the inner sanctum, deep in the volcanic heart of the mountain, who knows where, he's using a glass candle to verify something. I just not sure what it would have been. But basically, any of the other theories work with that. Like, was she alive? Whatever they were saying or promising or doing, like he could verify it with a candle, maybe.
So with that in mind, so glass candles you can kind of see anywhere, correct? With the glass candle?
It seems so, because Marwyn
Seems
is in
so.
Old Town and he knows all of Sam's story from the wall.
So are your thoughts on that? Would there be a reason why Rhaena then did not use one to find Araya? Or do you think maybe she did, and maybe because she went to Valyria, she wasn't able to see? Like there was some blockage there. That's why
Well,
she
I
couldn't
think
find
that
her.
you'd have to know where to look. Quaithe, for example, does that two-finger touch on Dany's wrist when they are there in person in Karth. And after that, she's able to very effectively contact her
Find
with
where
the
she
candle.
is.
So that
Yeah.
may have been a marking thing. If you weren't knowing that your 9-year-old was going to climb on a dragon and fly away, you may not have done that. And then you wouldn't know where to look, because where are they? You're just...
Yeah.
It's,
Just looking everywhere. Yeah.
right. Marwyn is watching Castle Black and maybe Craster's Keep. You know, stuff like that. So...
Okay. That makes sense. Yeah, I do like that idea that he went and used a glass candle to confirm something, and that is what convinced him. It's very sad, but I think it makes a lot of sense.
It's either that or, you know, the Dornish left a horse's head at his bed and was like, we can reach you anytime. And so he went back to Dragonstone and saw that, because Aenys was a child at that point, I believe. So maybe they threatened Aenys' life and said, you know, go look by your child's cradle and see that we can reach you. And then he goes there. That's the other idea, but I think the candle is cooler. So
I think that's cooler. I kind of like that. I like anything that involves a little bit of magic and mystery. So,
well, have you gotten into those the drafts, the Feast for Crows, like the canceled stuff that he cut out that's in the Cushing Library that people have like gone and talked about?
a little bit, but not probably as much as I should. I feel like I've touched on it a little bit.
So Michael Talks About Stuff has a couple good videos summarizing some of that. But one of the things that stands out the most is that originally he was planning on using the glass candles a lot more. Like every maester
Yes.
had one, and they all like mysteriously lit one day or something when the dragons came back, and they were just going to have a more active role. And I think there was some magical ability that they had too. What was it? Somebody in the chat can remember. There was some further magical thing that they could do. I think a Valyrian sorcerer can like bind their spirit to the candle, and they can't be killed as long as the candle's lit, kind of like a soul jar type thing.
Yeah, like a soul gem type thing, a little bit like a Horcruxy type thing.
Horcrux, yes.
Yeah. Or a little bit like the One Ring. That feels very inspired, you know.
Right. And so it seems like he scaled it back, but those are ideas that could be recycled. And I wondered about Dany seeing the Gemstone Emperors, who are probably Great Empire of the Dawn people. Like, where are they? They're like talking to her. Is that just a thing, like a dream that she's seeing, or are those spirits somewhere? And if they're somewhere, maybe they're in glass candles, you know.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And maybe it's like, maybe the candles do have these abilities, but this is some of just like the kind of magic and technology that has been lost to time over the years with the downfall of Valyria, and obviously, you know, with a Shy not being what it once was in that way, you know. So I could see it's like maybe, you know, there are some glass candles that are kind of soulbound in this way, but it's not really a thing that people have access to anymore. Because I feel like that's such a common theme in this story, is like these ancient technologies, these remnants of an ancient world that existed before that we no longer have access to.
Well, so that's the other reason to think that candles might be on Dragonstone. The fact that the Citadel has always had them. And Aegon is Lord of the Seven Kingdoms. He's going to Old Town and getting crowned there. He's negotiating with the High Towers and the Citadel and the Maesters. You know, absorbing the maesters into courtly life in King's Landing and all establishing the Grand Maester office. He would have seen the books in the library. He would know that they have candles. And so it's just like, if he didn't have any then, he probably would have taken one from them.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so do you think they were always on Dragonstone and the Maesters got them from there, or do you think the High Towers had some and gave them to the Maester? Like, where?
I think they probably would have always known how to make them on Dragonstone.
Okay.
So they would have always had them. But it would be interesting if, like, they lost the ability and then were like, oh, you saved some. How convenient. But obviously the Citadel still has a few. So I think the point is that they could kind of turn up anywhere, not anywhere, but like anywhere that makes sense. So Dragonstone, they could turn up. You know, I think Euron probably has one.
Oh, for sure.
So, yeah. All right. So, well, let's talk about Jaehaerys and Alysanne and then some of their children, because I feel like there's a lot of them, and they're, you know, they all have interesting little stories, but none of them are super famous except for like Balin and Alyssa, really, and kind of Sarah. But first, what are your thoughts on Jaehaerys and Alysanne themselves? They're 6 trips north of the wall, getting back to the whole Torrhen Stark, why did he kneel thing. Jaehaerys and Alysanne are the first ones that look like they are maintaining some sort of knowledge that the Starks are important and that they've got to, you know, beef up the Night's Watch and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, I think it seems like they definitely have an awareness of what may be going on. I mean, the fact that they're aware that their dragons don't want to cross the wall, I think that is, you know, incredibly interesting. And so it's like, I think there definitely is that awareness there. And maybe that's part of the reason why they felt the need to have so many children in order to really ensure this, you know, this legacy, because, you know, maybe they were aware that this prophecy is very important and that these, you know, pieces need to be in place. And that's why it kind of lends to this level of irony and tragedy and anxiety that so many of their children end up dying, and that it results in this, you know, succession crisis, really. So I wouldn't be surprised if they were aware of these things. But it's the, you know, the question is like, how far down, like, where does the prophecy and where does this knowledge get lost in the line? So
I think it gets basically pretty far. There's an interesting passage where Egg is talking in the second, in Sworn Sword, and he's saying, you know, the dragons will return one day. Hopefully it'll be my egg that hatches. Wouldn't that be splendid? He says that his brother Daeron, the drunkard, has dreamed of it, and his uncle Aerys, who's king after Daeron II, read it in a scroll. So somewhere in a scroll in House Targaryen's possession is something about dragons returning. That could be Aegon's prophecy itself. Either that, or it's going to be the writings of Jaehaerys or somebody else that's ruminating on that. So it seems like the knowledge makes it all the way down there. And essentially, it would go from, I mean, Visenya may have told Maegor, but Alyssa Velaryon would have known about it from Aenys, because Aenys is king, and Aenys is not a close to the vest guy. He's going to tell his wife about everything.
Yeah, for sure.
So she knows, and she would be able to then pass it to Jaehaerys and Alysanne, who clearly seem to know. And Alysanne even shuts down the Night Fort, as well as trying to fly across the wall. She shuts down the Night Fort. We know that thing has the Black Gate, potentially. That's where they're sacrificing babies to the others or something like that.
Yeah.
So
she wanted to put a stop to that, And I think, too, it would make sense for Aenys to know about it because, you know, for all the discussion of him being, like, weak and meek and mild and passive, I think it is really interesting that, you know, that Rhaena, I think, is very clearly, you know, possibly exhibiting some signs of maybe some homosexuality at court, and there's all these rumors of, oh, she gives her maidenhead to a random person, and he's not really concerned with that. I mean, I don't think he would stand up anyways, but he's just like, no, we just need to get her married off ASAP. You know, and so with that, it's like, it seems like an awareness of, like, we need to keep the family in line. We need to keep the family line going. We need to, focus on the important things. And so I wouldn't be surprised if, if he was aware and shared that information with his wife as well, and was like, we need to, lock in.
And Rhaena herself, she is just, I mean, I did a 5-hour stream reading all of the Rhaena stuff. I love Rhaena. But the thing that we wanted to bring up is that she's the one who came up with the tradition of putting the dragon's eggs in the cradles, and she named her dragon Dreamfire. Someone in the chat was asking me to bring up the whole dreams come from dragons thing, but like you can see how this all works. Dany is contacted by Drogon's spirit inside the egg before he hatches, and she's seeing him in the dream. So obviously, if you put the eggs in the cradles, the dragon spirit is going to start bonding with the child before it even hatches. And that's why it says invariably, the eggs placed in the cradles bonded with the kids. So how did she get that idea? Probably in a damn dream, because she's probably a dragon dreamer. I think all Targs actually are basically dragon dreamers, but her naming her dragon Dreamfire, like that seems like a home run.
It does feel very important. And then, of course, when we look at the concept that maybe Dany's dragons came from Dreamfire, like I would not be surprised at all if she herself was a dragon dreamer. And if that is why she named her dragon the way she did, I think that's all feels very in line.
And so this would explain why, even though she's sort of, to your point, nonconformist in many ways, Jaehaerys and Alysanne, they're not like really that worried about her. They're still on the same page, quote unquote, to a certain extent. So super chat real quick, talking about burning Volantis. Yes, it's the perfect, it's going to be the perfect event where the enemies of Daenerys will be able to spin it into a monstrous atrocity. And there probably will, I mean, she's not going to be able to perfectly burn only slavers. Now, it is going to be a pretty clean job because we've seen that most of the slaves are followers of the Lord of Light in the Red Temple. And there's also the Widow of the Waterfront, who's very in control of the lower classes. So it seems like when the moment is right, all the slaves inside the Black Walls are going to melt into the passages and disappear. And so we're going to burn mostly the slavers. But of course, there will be collateral damage, and of course, it will be controversial. I think that it mostly just will be spun in different ways. So
I think that makes a lot of sense too. I think that will be Daenerys's biggest struggle. We hear about from, Illyrio and Varys, they had this idea originally of having her brother Viserys be kind of introduced as this, very terrifying, violent version of a Targaryen with his Dothraki screamers and blah, blah, blah. And I think, unfortunately, I think people have been slating Daenerys as that as well because of all these things, because she's a woman, because she's, allied in ways with the Dothraki, because she has this unsullied army. So I wouldn't be surprised if these people that are, more noble do try to spin it in that way of like, she's this monstrous person. I mean, we even hear from characters, like Quentin, these stories that he's heard of her and how terrifying and terrible she is. So
Quentin is the perfect like empty vessel. He doesn't know what to believe. He hears all kinds of things. Like, it's really funny when he starts hearing the rumors. Yeah. And I like Victarion's response. He's like, "Fool, I will sail across the Dothraki Sea and don't tell me otherwise." Choke slam.
Yeah, and I love too, just every ship he takes, they're like, "Yeah, she's not in the city anymore," and he's like, "A liar," and he's like, "Well, I'm gonna kill you," and "Oh, she died," and he's like, "Not true," and he's just like ignoring everything, and then eventually it's not until someone tells him she flew away on her dragon, then he's like, "Oh wait, what?" He kind of finally starts, listening a little bit. But yeah, both of their interpretations of her are incredibly interesting. And even too, I was just thinking about how Victarion, I think he even says at one point, like, she frees slaves and so do I. I'm freeing all these slaves and now you work for me. And it's it's I don't think it's meant to be comedic, but it is. It's incredibly ironic.
Oh, I think George finds all this shit really funny, to be honest. Yeah, I think it's definitely meant to be comedic. And it's one of those things where, like, he kills the messenger. It's a way of showing you that, like, he's got a certain low cunning, very low, but he is an idiot. Like, this is a man that is not acting out of strategic interest all the time. Like he's got impulse control or whatever. But
Yeah, and I mean it's just so funny because it's like worst person you know gets a hold of a red priest. I mean maybe not the worst person. I feel like maybe that's Euron, but it still is just very funny, you know.
so I just want to, since we're talking Victorian, I have to throw this at you. One of my newer theories that I came up with was essentially taking the idea of the Dragonbinder horn and oh gosh, how do I explain this quickly? Basically, Victarion wants to blow the horn. He's lusting
Yeah.
after it. He knows he shouldn't, but he really wants to. And I think what the dragon horn does, being called Dragon Binder, is that it actually helps form the dragon bond. And essentially, it's going to put the spirit of the person that blows the horn into a dragon. The whole idea with the dragon bond is like there's potentially going back to Daemon's song from season 1 of House of the Dragon, where he's talking about
Is
the
this about like
three
Valyrian
heads.
spirits being in the dragons?
What's that?
Like Valyrian ancestors being in the dragons, their spirits, their souls.
Yeah, I don't think I came up with that. I have my own version of it, but it's definitely an idea that's around there. I think the horn is what does that. I have my reasons, but basically what's going to happen potentially is that Victarion's going to blow the horn at some point. He's going to get stuffed into Viserion, and that is what is going to enable Euron to bond with the dragon, because now his bloodkin will be in the dragon.
Okay.
Mostly as a passenger. Victarion doesn't get to be in charge, but he'll be, Hodored in there or whatever. And so, yeah, I think that will be the end of Victarion.
In the way too that like the children, there are children spirits in the ravens, and even though Bran is able to warg into a raven, there's someone else in there, like he feels the echo of them a little bit. That makes sense. I like that idea. I feel like it connects well. I've seen your video on that theory, the three of like you have the rider, the dragon, and then the soul inside the dragon, talking about like the little Valyrians and their connection with
The
like
lemurs.
the spirit
Yeah,
realm.
yeah.
Yeah, because a long time ago, I made a video that I think added on to it that talked about the fact that shrikes, the bird, they're also known to be in certain cultures the bird of the dead that have spirits in them, ancestors. And so you have, the land of the shrikes with the lizard people, the winged people, and it kind of all connects that together. So I definitely feel like that makes sense.
Was
I
that
ascribe to
Crowfoot's daughter talking about that?
What was that?
Was that Crowfoot's daughter talking about that? That's a YouTube
not-
channel. Disputed
No,
Lands.
I'm not entirely sure. I remember I saw your video on it, and then I made a video that added on with the little shrikes thing.
Oh, you did. I'm sorry, I missed that part of the sentence. Okay, well, I will make sure to go back and watch that.
It was a long time ago over on TikTok, but I feel like I probably could put it over here on YouTube. I'm trying to transfer over to YouTube now, so
Well, your historical stuff on YouTube is really good. If you guys will see when you watch it, it's super high quality. So I'm sure that you will go somewhere, and we'll get you some new subs today for sure. But
I appreciate
no, you're doing
it.
good
Yeah,
stuff.
I mean, thank you. My favorite things about this world are the weird, like I said, magical aspects. I like getting into the nitty-gritty strangeness of it. So I really like that idea about Victarion being the soul that is going to be in Viserion. I feel like that connects it very nicely, and that is the theory I'm going to be subscribing to from now on. That makes sense.
So I've got one. I think the title of it is called "How Euron Will Trick Victarion." The cover of it is Viserion and Victarion with the arrow going. He's gonna go in the dragon.
It makes sense too, because we have that constant repetition of like, Euron's gifts are poisoned, and we don't know quite how this horn's gonna work. We know it definitely kills people, but Victarion still wants to be the one to blow, and like this, it makes sense.
And there's a whole like the Tyrion chapter from Winds where there's the white Sivas dragon that drinks up the blood of the Yunkish envoy, who is colored just like Victarion in black and yellow. And Victarion is an envoy, and his blood gets soaked into the white dragon. And at the same time, Viserion is flying around eating the corpses that are being catapulted into the air. So it's like, the dragon's going to eat a dead spirit. He's going to drink the blood of a envoy wearing black and yellow. And there's just all these other little clues. So
that makes sense. Yeah.
It'll be funny. It'll be high comedy, I'm sure.
Yes.
So, and then the idea that the dragon's going to fly back to the High Tower somehow, like that's a given. All the foreshadowing for Euron and the High Tower, that's something crazy is going to happen. So,
something crazy is going to happen in Old Town for sure. So
Alysanne, when Alysanne flew her dragon Silverwing to the top of the High Tower and fanned up the beacon flame, I believe that is foreshadowing, because Silverwing is a pale dragon, close enough, white dragon, cream-colored dragon. So we've got a dragon flying to the top of the High Tower. And instead of Alysanne being there, I think that we could be looking for Hands of White Fire Lady at that moment. So that's either Melora Hightower or Spirit of Night's Queen or something like that,
Right. I think that makes sense. Yeah. And I mean, Viserion is referred to sometimes as the White Dragon. So I could definitely see that being that, echo. And that's a thing too we'll be getting into with Jaehaerys's children. There's all these weird little echoes that I feel like obviously they're not perfect one-to-ones, but they're definitely not coincidental. It really feels like George is, for lack of a better words, cooking with these things. He is like seeding these little seeds to reiterate these themes and these concepts that, that time is repeating, that all of these things are happening again and again until eventually things, go right, is kind of what it feels like.
So let's talk about, because we know George does that. It's almost like the multiverse, where he takes the same arc and plays it out in miniature in different ways. It's added commentary to the main characters. I'm not sure. There's a lot of subtle ways to describe it, but who's the Daenerys that dies of the winter fever? Isn't that Jaehaerys and Alysanne's kid?
Yes, and I'm going to go on a little tangent real quick because...
Go for it.
So their first child is Prince Aegon, and he dies a few days after being born, and Alysanne blames this on not being able to bathe in Jonquil's pool, because as we know, she is attacked by a bunch of septas. She dies. And it's this, blessed pool that obviously Maiden Pool is built around, and only women can enter this area. And it kind of made me think of, the Mother of Mountains and, the pool that Daenerys bathes in. And even though she is able to bathe in that pool, her son still dies. And as we know, Daenerys has this kind of prophecy, this dream, these visions of the crones coming out from under the lake and bowing to her. So it's this opposite of the septas attacking Alysanne versus the crones bowing to Daenerys. And so I think this third time when Daenerys goes back to Vaes Dothrak, it's going to go well for her this time. And I don't think that means she's going to have a living son, but I think it means she will take up this mount of, stallion who mounts the world and gain all these children by unifying the Khalasar. And so I was just like, oh, that's just, an interesting little blurb and a little thing that, George kind of, it just feels connected in a little bit of a way. And then their second child is Daenerys, who dies of the shivers. And, this is a disease that supposedly the Targaryens should not be able to get. And Daenerys in the main series right now is possibly, dealing with the pale mare. And so it again just feels all connected. And it's intentional too, because I believe their child Daenerys, Jaehaerys and Alysanne, she was originally slated to be a different character. It was like this sixth born son that was, let's see, Aaron. And so for George to change that, make Daenerys the second child, have her die this death, it all feels very intentional. Like he had a purpose for that. So
there's really only one thing that it can mean. It's different versions of that one thing, but it means that the end of Daenerys' story is going to be in the north. Dying of the shivers, like, obviously the White Walkers are going to win. They're going to kill Dany and end of story, and George is twisted. But the thing that I combine it with is her House of the Undying foreshadowing. It's particularly the last moment when the 10,000 blood-stained hands of the slaves are raising, saying Misa, and they need the warmth and the life and her fire. And so she gives it to them because she is a mother goddess who wants to give herself to her children constantly in every book. But the thing is, the 10,000 blood-stained hands, that's also a description of a weirwood canopy, because the weirwood leaves are blood-stained hands. And over and over again, it's used that way. And so then when she wakes up, it's not in fact the slaves reaching out for her, but the Undying, who are cold blue shadows gathered around a cold blue shadow heart. So you could see what the elements are here. Daenerys giving her life up to the weirwood in such a way that will burn the others and free the slaves. The slave masters that she burns in Slaver's Bay are also like others, keeping the Unsullied, who are like whites. They're like stone men with dead faces, brick men, or however she describes them. They're basically like whites. They move in a hive mind, at least at first, until she gives them their freedom. And so that's the whole thing. It's like she's going to sacrifice herself or magically transform into the Weirwood Net or something like that in the north. And that's going to free the whites from bondage. I think that will be the big magical thing that she does, is like, by ending the power of the others, all of those dead souls will get to go to rest. And this fits as a mother goddess because she's performing that chthonic duty of like ushering everyone into the grave, the warm embrace, peaceful rest, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that's where it's going as far as the Shivers goes. I'll ask for your comment, and then I have one other more twisted version of it that I'll throw at you.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that makes sense. I think also, obviously George is having a very fun time kind of exploring and picking apart the, doctrine of exceptionalism. And we see that all throughout Jaehaerys and Alysanne's children. And it leads to all these questions of like, okay, well, what diseases can they get? And is this all propaganda, or are there some that they are immune to? And one other thing I wanted to add, I don't think it's a coincidence either that their first three children are Aegon, Daenerys, and Aemon. I like the theory that Jon's true name might be Aemon. And so that all feels intentional. So
I think that if we had a poll in the chat, Aemon would win. I know there's a lot of Aemon supporters here. Jon Aemon, the Dragon Knight. It really fits. Aemon, the Dragon Knight, if you think about it, he's got ice dragon symbolism, which is what Jon has, because he's wearing the Kingsguard armor, which is designed as a symbolic parallel of the others. White shadows, the field of white snow is their sigil. They're ghostly in the moonlight, just like the others are ghostly in the moonlight. They're called white shadows and pale shadows, all this stuff. Basically, the Dragon Kings are playing the role of Night's King, surrounded by others. It's like a mirror. And so Aemon the Dragon Knight, he's a dragon wearing the icy armor of the others, just like Jon is a Targaryen raised under the name Snow, raised in the north, potentially going to be frozen and have his body stolen by the others for a little time. So the ice dragon is mentioned in Jon's
raised
chapters.
By the Starks, who may have some magical other type blood going on. I mean, I definitely think that makes sense. And I mean, even just from like an etymology standpoint, I mean, Aemon meaning the hidden one, Aemon being Aemon being a demon, that was once worshipped, that had the head of a wolf and the body of a, winged snake, a lizard. So it's like,
Hold on, what?
Yeah, so in like demonology, Aemon was this like worshipped demon. He was the demon of pacts, of making pacts and alliances.
That's so interesting because Jon is also Mithras, who is. Keep going.
And it's so interesting because it's like, we see Jon doing this time and time again, making pacts, making deals, obviously with the wildlings, possibly eventually with the others, if you believe that, there needs to be some type of pact, a pact of ice and fire. And yeah, there's just all these other little connections with the name Aemon that I just feel like really make a lot of sense when you look into mythology. So
I've heard the hidden one before, but I'd forgotten about it. That's incredible. And the rest of it is, you said the head of a wolf and the body of a winged serpent? Are you shit?
I believe it's the head of a wolf and the body of a winged serpent, or maybe it's the opposite. Maybe it's the head of like a dragon and the body of a wolf. Either way, it's like a split in half. And I'm like, well, it feels like Jon to a T. So,
Theory confirmed. Wow. Yeah, you're going to fit in great around here, Estella. That's incredible.
Love that. Yeah. Okay. I'm in the right place. So
yeah. The chat is duly impressed. That's great. I'm gonna use that. I'll give you a shout out. But that's
Sure.
next time I talk about Jon, because we just did this whole thing about Tyrion and the Chimera. Did you see my Tyrion videos by any chance? They're very long. It's okay.
I feel like I've heard, is this in regards to Tyrion possibly being a Targaryen? Is that
Oh,
and
definitely.
like the fact that he has
yeah.
heterochromia and all of this? Okay. Yeah, I will have to check this video out, but I'm aware of these theories and this concept. But I would like to hear what you have added to it. I'd like to hear your spin on it. And then also, I do want to go back and hear your other Daenerys thought with the shivers that was a little bit darker.
Your short-term memory is better than mine. I appreciate that. So the whole the brief Chimera thing is that well, obviously the medical Chimera is linked to heterochromia. You seem to know that. By the biological Chimera, I guess I should say, but chimerism. The Greek Chimera is essentially a lion that breathes fire and has a serpent's head for a tail, and sometimes wings. It's also got the weird goat head coming out of its back. But it is essentially a fire-breathing winged lion with a snake tail. And so that is a pretty close to a lion dragon, which is what Tyrion would be, obviously, Joanna and Aerys' son, potentially. There's even scenarios with the Chimera thing where he could be the son of both Tywin and Aerys, because it's one of those things where you got the two. I mean, that's what a Chimera is. You have two embryos, and one either absorbs the other or they merge. So he may have eaten his twin in the womb and all this other stuff.
And I mean, we are already primed to the concept of chimeras with the Valyrians. I mean, we're told directly that they would, breed their slaves with monsters to create unnatural chimeras, and Tyrion is referred to quite a bit as a monster and like all this stuff. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's, a little bit more of a literal, thing with him, but obviously clearly still magically inclined. So,
and it's a cool way to hide Tyrion being another secret Targaryen or whatever. It's like make him a dwarf, give him heterochromia, the weird patchy hair. But the evidence is really strong. So yeah, I basically have a giant 2-hour Tyrion Targaryen video that's cut in half into 2 different videos. So yeah, at your leisure. But that reminds me of that because Chimera is siblings, with Cerberus and the Hydra. Okay, so Cerberus obviously is the inspiration for both the Sigil of House Stark and House Targaryen, 3-headed dragon, whatever. But specifically the Cerberus mythology applies to the Starks and the Winterfell crypts. It's really heavy there, especially with Jon and Ghost and all that. So if you think about the 3 heads of the dragon being Dany, Jon, and Tyrion, the Hydra is the best match for the Targaryen. It's a multi-headed sea serpent. Obviously, Dany, the Stormborn Dragonstone, is a multi-headed dragon sitting in the ocean. It has a sea dragon tower. So you could basically see what's going on. Like if George is making Tyrion an inspiration of Chimera, Greek Chimera, then Jon is Cerberus and Dany is Hydra. And they're all related. So that's what that reminded me of when you told me that Aemon is a demon that is a wolf dragon.
No, that makes sense, and I think I feel like that makes sense for George to be playing with those ideas. I would also like to throw. It reminded me of there are. I was going to say there are no bad ideas, no bad theories. That's not true. I'm thinking now of the Tyrion time traveling fetus, but someone in my comments told me that their theory that they proposed was that the Cleganes were specifically genetically bred by Tywin to be incredibly cruel and mean. And it made me laugh, but I was like, sure, why not? But when you mentioned 3-headed dog, that is just what I thought of.
Well, they are doing, it's the big one is when Sandor fights with his shield. It's the white star, but it gets chipped off, and underneath is the 3 dogs of Clegane. And then he becomes undead and all that stuff. Yeah, but he's the cooler thing is that Sandor is the replacement direwolf for both Arya and Sansa. So and he's called the Hellhound by Arya. So that's all pretty good.
But anyways, I feel like, sorry, we're getting so off topic. I want to hear your thoughts on Daenerys, though, the shivers thing.
We're coming back to that. So
Great.
the different version of what could all this icy foreshadowing for Dany mean, potentially. And she does have some Night Queen symbolism, particularly with Dario.
She fulfills that role. Yeah, okay.
And Night's Queen, we don't. I mean, she could be a hero for all we know. She could be a victim. She could be someone. She might be dead Nissa Nissa turning the tables inside the Weirwood. We've got lots of different theories, and a lot of the Night's Queen characters are not evil. They're people like Val, Lyanna Stark, pretty heroic characters. So I definitely think Night's Queen is like someone we could probably end up rooting for, but neither here nor there. I'm just trying to please my witchy fans in the chat, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm a big Melisandre truther. I don't think she's a bad person. I think she is an incredibly misguided person that is doing what she thinks is right. And even though that might not be the right thing, I think she's trying her best.
I might have you back on to talk about that one time. I have lots of thoughts about Melisandre. She is fun to talk about, and yeah, I would love to hear your take on that. So.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's the whole the blue Melisandre figurine and all that too of it all. So, if we're going to talk about Night's Queen theories, but I think my favorite, I like that it is, I feel like Daenerys fits the best for it. I mean, we do get a lot of different symbolic Night's Queen figures in a way, like you were saying with Val and stuff, and Lyanna, but I do like the idea of it being Daenerys, based on all of that imagery that you were mentioning earlier.
And so basically, the idea is that Jon and Dany might turn into a new Night's King and Queen in order to lead the others back into the astral realm. You could say the Heart of Winter, but I think it's back into the Weirwood Net. They don't belong outside of the Weirwood Net, in my opinion. That's the whole problem. So that would be bittersweet because Jon and Dany would have to transform into others, basically. But in doing so, they would be ending the threat of the others. So it's fulfilling the pact. I do think that Jon is the prince that was promised to the others because he is a Stark. And the whole way that the Starks would get icy other blood in their bloodline is they rescued a child of Night's King and Queen and brought it back and raised it as a Stark, just like Craster, Gilly's baby and Sam and Jon and all that stuff. So it seems like you're hip to all that.
Yeah, I think all of that makes a lot of sense. And yeah, for that to be the kind of the pact of ice and fire, so to speak. I very much do think that it will end in, an agreement, a pact, a magical balance in the end. I don't necessarily think it's like we need to fully eradicate both of these beings. I think it's like they need to return to the natural balance of things, for the seasons to be restored, for all of these things to, have some equilibrium by the end of it. And it would be bittersweet, because like they get to be together, but, and George has said that it's kind of all about them converging and coming together, but it would be a little bit sad of but they do have to change immensely, and then like you're saying, lead all of the others to the Weirwood Net and possibly enter themselves. So
the thing that I like about this ending is it's not, Dany has to sacrifice herself to save the world, which George, if you're listening, I don't know if you're watching Stranger Things. I wasn't watching Stranger Things, but even I know that people are getting kind of burnt on creating these heroines and then being like, sorry, I know your life was rough, but you're going to have to sacrifice yourself. Now, my best Stranger Things friend did like the ending, but nevertheless, we are I'm hoping that George has something different planned at this point. He may have planned this out 30 years ago, but George, again, if you're listening, you're probably not, but if somebody is, maybe something a little different would be cool. And so if it's Jon and Dany becoming other king and queen and leading the others into the mist or something, that is cool because they're not alone. They're together in this weird fate. So that to me would be perfectly bittersweet, but
exactly. I did catch that stream where you were all talking at the end about the ending of Stranger Things. I know it was a very divisive ending for some people, but I agree. I think people are growing a bit tired or disillusioned to the trope of, incredibly powerful woman has to give up her powers by the end to save humanity or has to sacrifice herself. And knowing George and knowing how he is never one to try to, lean on tropes that have been, tried and trodden, I have faith in him that he will have some, interesting but, satisfying inversion of that, or, subversion. And I think it would make sense that it's, it's not just Dany sacrificing herself, it's also Jon and they're together. I think that feels like a good, like you said, bittersweet, but it would make sense.
Because there is romantic foreshadowing for them too. And while I don't think they're going to sit the Iron Throne together and spawn a bunch of new Targaryen princes and stuff, it doesn't seem to be where it's going. That would be a cool way to fulfill it. So that is a video I plan to make at some point, maybe after Night of the Seven Kingdoms, Jon and Dany Night Queen theory, Knights, King and Queens. So that's that. That could be bringing it back to Jaehaerys and Alysanne's child Daenerys, who died of the shivers. Like, it's got to be something like that. I mean, like you said, it was a conspicuous change by George to edit this in Fire and Blood and say, oh no, this child Daenerys. So the other Daenerys goes to Dorne and has the water gardens named after her. Now, if we think about Dorne as a hot, cold parallel for the extreme north, which is that comparison's made by the maesters, the north and Dorne. But think about it. The Dornish all live in the desert, like Fremen, who have blue eyes, and the others have blue eyes. So that's no. But you see what I'm saying? The water gardens could sort of be a symbol for the weirwood net, much like the canals of Braavos are. Anything with canals and waterways is like River of Time, weird stuff.
When you think of the Rhoynar and their like water magic, their connections with that, with the Mother Rhoyne, again, mother imagery, I think that makes sense. And I mean, I feel like George does have a lot of very interesting little bits of inspiration and parallels to Dune. Obviously, I feel like we see that with Daenerys and the Dothraki, with kind of her, wandering in the desert and having these prophecies. And so I think it makes sense too, like over on Westeros, like you were saying, for, the Dornish people to kind of have this, almost Fremen aspect to them as well as, I feel like we see that also mirrored in the Wildlings and in the others, these groups.
So to me, that could fit in the foreshadowing, because that's the only other Daenerys that we have, is the one that marries the Prince of Dorne and has the water gardens named after her. So that could be cryptic foreshadowing of Daenerys like having the weirwood net named after her, marrying the Prince of the Desert. That would be the Prince of the Iceland, who could be Jon.
Because we think about the parallels too of like, the kind of frozen wastelands and then the red waste, and like, these, on opposite sides of the world, we do have this similar language about these different areas. And so it does make sense that they are being mirrored to each other quite a bit. And I believe Daenerys does have like a pretty like verbal moment where she's thinking about how she wants to have a kingdom where there are happy children running around and maidens splashing in the water. And I mean, that's basically what you get in Dorne with these water gardens. It's like all of the little orphan children of the green blood play in the water and are happy. So I think that's definitely intentional. It's not a coincidence.
Yeah, it's just the context of Quentin bringing it up to Dany when they're like on the way to meet the dragons, and he's like, we have the water gardens and everyone's peaceful, and she's like, kid, what are you doing here?
Yeah, she's like, you are so cute and too late. This is not,
Yeah, I need fire and blood right now. Water gardens later. Yeah, we did a good Quentin stream. Yeah, there's a charitable take on him, because really it's his dad shoving him into stuff that he should have sent Oberyn. That was our take. It's like Oberyn maybe could have pulled off that mission to Slaver's Bay, but Quentin was just not cut out for that.
Oh, I think Oberyn would have had it in the bag. But yeah, Quentin was not here for that. It's funny. Like I said, my partner is reading these books for the first time, and I asked him, I was like, do you think Quentin's gonna get a dragon? And he was like, no, these boys need to go home. He's like, these boys are always getting up to something and they need to go home. They are out of their element.
Well, someone in the chat mentioned the famous first lines of one of those chapters, adventure stank. And it's the boat adventure, but it's like, no, this whole thing.
Yeah, they're just out of their league. They should not be here. But again,
so
I feel
you
like
said Aegon. So they have a child, Aegon, that dies. That reminds us of Rhaenys's, Rhaella's Aegon, I suppose. No, I'm sorry, Rhaegar and Elia's Aegon,
yes.
who is Fagon, but not.
Maybe.
No, he's not.
No, I also do not think he is. But people get real. I mean, everyone wants to believe their own theory. Oh
no! Listen, chat. Oberyn and Dario would have been in a knife fight the first night. That would have happened right away.
For sure. For sure. Like, oh yeah, I feel like it would be like two peacocks that are just like, fighting.
Or maybe
but yeah,
they would
so
just.
maybe they'd be down. Yeah, honestly. Okay, so yeah, that first Aegon, kind of reminiscent of Fagon. Then we have the Daenerys, and then we have Aemon. This is the Aemon that I believe is rather tragically killed by a stray crossbow bolt to the throat.
Yes. When he is putting down a rebellion on, is it Tarth?
I believe so. The arrow was meant for the Lord of Tarth. So yeah, it was like pirates, So,
right. It was a Mirish crossbow.
Yep.
That'd be a good one. Tongue twister out of that. Shiera Seastar with the Mirish crossbow.
Yeah, someone commented, what is it? Shiera Seastar sold sea stars by the seashore. So
she sold Mirish crossbows by the seashore. Or something. But yeah, so that's part of potentially the Maester conspiracy, because this is where all these heirs to the throne start falling. Aemon dies, and then Balon. How does Balon die? Balon the Brave. An illness,
burst belly, yeah, which is probably appendicitis. So again, it brings up this thing of like, so what diseases can they get? It again kind of brings up this, doctrine of exceptionalism. It's like, oh, so certain diseases maybe they can't get, but like normal ailments of men, yes, like I guess anyone can get appendicitis. It leaves again more questions than answers. And again, we get these constant repetition of threes. It's like these, these children are dying. It's like threes and sixes, and it's not until we get to Vagon, the seventh child, that this child survives into adulthood. So we have 6 children that die rather young. But yeah, he probably gets appendicitis. He has 3 sons, but the third one also dies very young. So it's overall, again, just very tragic.
Are you talking about Aemon's children?
Oh, sorry, Balon's children. He gets appendicitis. He has 3 children, but one of them dies in infancy. And yeah, so.
And then his other 2 sons are Viserys and Daemon, obviously.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Mm-hmm.
I forgot they had a lost brother.
Mm-hmm. I believe his name was also Aegon, but I'm not positive.
Wait, are all these other Aegons dying without heirs? The non-king ones? Is that a clue about Aegon the Conqueror not having any official heirs?
Maybe. That is a good point. I don't want to say yes fully because I'm not positive, but that's a thread that maybe
Aegon
pull
the
out.
Uncrowned, he still has kids. He's the
yeah. Okay.
So
You're right.
Okay, so then we got Vagon. He becomes a maester, and he's like a bitter dude. He had he said some rude thing. Was it to Sarah?
Oh, it was about Daella. I think I wrote it down because it made me laugh. It was, I would never marry her. She can barely read. She should find some lord in need of stupid children, for that is the only sort he will have of her. And I'm just like, that feels very sibling coded to be like, you want me to marry her? She's stupid. So I feel like that's the most accurate sibling depiction in this, of being like, no, I don't want to marry my sister. So,
Which is interesting because you hear about all these brother-sister marriages and you would think, well, some of them must not have wanted to.
Yeah, right. Oh, and really quick too, before Vagon was Maegelle. She became a septa, and I think it's important to point out as well that she lived into adulthood, but she did die of grayscale. So again, that's another disease that the Targaryens seemingly can get. And so it kind of opens up that door of like, is it diseases that are maybe magically inclined? Like, is it...
Oh, I meant to solve that one for you. Yeah. So check this out. Grayscale was created by the Rhoynar to apply to the Valyrians. So that's a disease that's always going to afflict the Targaryens. Yes. Everything else, basically the Targaryens' body temperature is probably hotter by a little amount because they're the blood of the dragon. And exactly. I think that Dany's miraculous ability to walk into the pyre doesn't come from nowhere. I think this is an extension of a normal heat tolerance that the Targs probably have, and that would be handy for riding dragons. You're going to be around a lot of heat. So if you have a higher heat tolerance, that would be good. And that would kill a lot more diseases that wouldn't be able to live in your body because they would have evolved to 98.6. So that would make it so that it's not impossible for them to catch diseases, but it would eliminate a lot of them. They don't get the flu and the cold and things like that.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I think that is definitely part of it because we do, get a mentioning of like Egg being not bothered by the heat. In fact, it seems almost like he thrives in it when they're in kind of the hotter Dornish climates. But yeah,
Yes.
it kind of opens up this door for like, so certain diseases they can't get because their base level body temperature is just too high. So it's like, so what is it about, obviously grayscale is magically created, like you said, by the Rhoynar as this like magical weapon when they were fighting against the Valyrians. And there's some kind of interesting language around the shivers where it's like it comes super suddenly and can kill you within a day, and then it was foreign. So it kind of leads to this idea of like, is this also a bit magical in origin? Is that why it was able to affect the Targaryens? So as well as obviously we know the bloody flux is kind of maybe just dysentery, but Daenerys is warned about it in this kind of prophecy. So it does feel like an almost very poignant attack that these people are showing up to her city with this disease. So I think that's a little bit of a thread that can be pulled at.
So I thought that moment with Dany choosing to wander amongst the sick was a perfect bit of writing because it's half delusional and half altruistic. And that's kind of the lane that Dany is driving down. Like, she is this prophesied hero, and she's the only person in the world with dragons. Like, those are facts. But, like, that's kind of crazy. Put yourself in those shoes for a second. Like, how do you not go crazy and, like, megalomaniacal? Like, it's very... You see her wrestling with this stuff. So it's like, yeah, it's part delusional, thinking that she won't get sick. She think, a lot of Targs don't get sick, but some of them did. She's, F it, I'm going to go for it. But it's also clearly coming from her motivation to do something for these people that she can't let in the city because of the plague and stuff, but she doesn't want to leave them alone. So it is a very compassionate moment as well. So
yeah, for sure. And I think too, it kind of then plays into this constant discussion on like, are the Targs are they built different, or how built different are they at the end of it? And how much of it is, your family, your genetics, your blood, and how much of it is you as a person? How much of it is her? And like you were saying, this, this altruism or these things being tied to her specifically versus how much of it is her lineage and all that. So I think it opens up some interesting discussions.
It's the perfect mix for Dany. So yeah, I don't know if the shivers... I mostly think it's just some normal disease that's got parallelism to the others, kind of like frostbite. George uses frostbite as an analogy for getting otherized. But yeah, I mean, grayscale is a magic disease. I don't even know what George is doing with grayscale, except for the fact that Jon Conn's going to fall down a well like Alan Cockshaw in King's Landing and spread it into the water supply. I think that's going to happen.
That I feel like it is definitely
They're the same person, Alan Cockshaw and John Connington.
It's you also have this instance of Val being so scared of Shireen, and her grayscale, and her thinking that it's not gone, it is just dormant, like it could be reactivated. And so I don't think it's like, what is it, Chekhov's grayscale, basically, where it's like it is going to definitely play a part.
It's definitely going to spread. My question is just like, why do we need that in the final acts of the... What's it going to do? It could have something to do with like the destruction of King's Landing, like it needs to get burnt because everyone has grayscale, or people get quarantined or something. But
I could see that. Yeah. That would make sense. Circling back to speaking about Vagon, I think it's very interesting that, he had no interest in women or men for that matter. He was just very interested in books and, ended up becoming an archmaester in, I believe, economics and mathematics. And so it makes
Unsexy topics as you could possibly come up with. Yes.
Yeah. But it makes me wonder too, because I mean, like I said, and there's so many instances of threes and sixes and these multiples in this family over and over again. And, being a maester in economics, trying to know what is economically the best for the realm, being at the Great Council, it makes me wonder if he was aware of these patterns in his family or if he kind of rationalized it away, or if he himself did some math and was like, I think these things will be the best for the realm. But that gets kind of into the Grand Maester conspiracy of it all, of like, was the Great Council rigged? Was it not? So.
It definitely could have been. They had every opportunity. The way that Vagon shows up and just kind of decides a lot of that stuff is very suspicious. Jerry's is so old at that point. He's not in charge, really. And he's delegating a lot of his authority at that point to, I guess it was Otto and Vagon, essentially.
Yeah.
So.
And then we don't hear about him. He kind of just disappears back into the Citadel. And so I think if he had died, we would have heard about it. So the fact that we don't, I think, implies that he does survive the dance and is, the first child of Jaehaerys and Alysanne to live into an old age. So I just think that is very interesting.
Yeah. And just a reminder, like the Maester conspiracy, there's different. The one we're talking about is the idea that the Maesters have interfered with the Targaryen family tree in order to bring them down and eliminate the dragons and just eliminate magic from the world. This is Maester Marwyn's theory. This is not any fan theory. This Maester Marwyn is the one who's pushing this thing. So it's really just a question of how far does it go? When was it in operation? And the big thing is, did they help instigate the dance of the dragons? Because the only way to kill dragons turned out to be the dragons fighting each other. Like, that's how most of them died. So Vagon is right in the middle of that.
Exactly. And then he, very skillfully kind of disappears and stays out of it in a way that I don't think is unintentional. It's like he is not really written about, it feels like almost purposefully, in order to maybe conceal his involvement in these things. But it takes a no-brainer to see that like a character like Viserys, over Rhaenys, Viserys, would have been ideally more controllable. He didn't have a dragon. He was, married to another Targaryen as opposed to Corlys Velaryon. Like Rhaenys and Corlys, I think, were much more imposing people. Obviously, Rhaenys is a dragon rider, so I think it, economically, I would not be surprised if Vagon looked at it and said, no, I think this option will be the best for the realm. And even if, maybe they didn't need to rig it at all, but even if they didn't, I think they probably would have.
Yeah, I not only did I think they potentially rigged it, but there's also the question of like whose claims were looked at the most seriously. Like it was who was the very young candidate that was the son of, oh gosh.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I know there's a very young candidate. I know Sarah, like 3 of her sons with different fathers showed up across the Narrow Sea and all proposed their possible claims. And I think they were very quickly kind of dismissed as potential ones.
Oh, well, it would. Okay, so I was thinking of Rhaenys and like Laenor was born at that point, or was she pregnant with Laenor?
I believe Rhaenys was proposed, and then I think they also proposed her son as well. I think they did also propose Laenor.
Yeah, it's really inexcusable that Rhaenys wasn't picked. She just it makes too much sense from a political point of view. Like you said, there's this guy that rode a dragon once and is totally good on that, and is not trying to ride any more dragons. To me, it made a lot of sense that House of the Dragon portrayed him as like kind of scared of the dragons. Like that fits to me. So
yeah, it feels very fitting, and it shows that it's like, again, he would be a much easier to control leader as opposed to Rhaenys.
And he definitely was. So okay, so let's go back. Let's talk about Sarah. Sarah is okay, so I get her story confused with the Black Pearl, which is she's a daughter of Aegon the Unworthy, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so tell us Sarah's story.
Yeah, so Sarah is, she's very clever and cunning and incredibly argumentative. I think it said that from, her birth, her first words are no. And she's, very contemptuous, and it's even implied that like she wishes that she was the heir and also that she was the only child, but you have to remember she's the ninth born. And multiple of these children have died by this point. I think at this point she has six other living siblings, and so I feel like part of her, I personally think she might have a bit of a personality disorder going on. I think that's what George might be writing into her character. But I think even if she didn't, having six other siblings that are all, with other personalities, other talents, other things that they're known for, you kind of have to be loud and annoying to try to get the attention of your parents. And it's said, though, that even though she was loud and bossy and argumentative, she was oftentimes ignored. And it said that she would pull little pranks, she would pull pranks on her siblings. She stole all of the cloaks of the Kingsguard and dyed them pink. So you're kind of thinking like, oh, maybe
I forgot
she's like
about that. That's pretty funny.
You're like, maybe she's like a little Arya, a little prankster. But when you look at the pranks, they do kind of all have an undercurrent of cruelty to them a little bit. And then it's said that pretty quickly she stops stealing cloaks and starts stealing alcohol, and starts getting into some bad behaviors. She ends up having a pretty terrible scandal involving her friends and a bunch of boys that they're all kind of sleeping with and doing things with they shouldn't be. But to me, I really think she sounds like the picture of a child exhibiting conduct disorder, which is the disorder you diagnose a child with, and then in adulthood, it's antisocial personality disorder. Just based on the fact that it talks about how she was able to manipulate people, her father in particular, whereas Alysanne kind of saw right through her. These behaviors of, being overtly sexual, being cruel to people, having kind of a disregard for empathy, stealing alcohol, impulsive behavior. And then in these final moments where she is confronted with all of these terrible things she has done, it says that she goes from like, sorrowful and sad to angry to defensive to all these ranges of emotions until she's eventually just stone cold and resigned to it. And yeah, then afterwards, I believe her, her main lover is killed in a trial by combat. I think Jaehaerys himself does it. And she's sent with her sister Miguel to go be a septa. And I believe it was supposed to be a temporary punishment, but she escapes and flees across to the Narrow Sea, where she is found in a pleasure house and works her way up until she eventually has her own pleasure house in Volantis. And there's a quote where, she's offered to come back if she wants to press her claim during the Great Council, and she says, no, I have my own kingdom here. So in the end, she kind of gets what she wants in being the heir and only child, but it's at a terrible cost, and it's really sad, honestly. I think she's a bit of a villain, but I think when you take a deeper look at her and like the Targaryen family as a whole, what we were talking about earlier of, these ideas of your family's the greatest and prophecy and you are special, and then being born a princess who is also, like I said, the seventh child or something, you can see how you would have to develop like a really crazy level of delusion of grandeur to even survive. So sorry.
Yeah, well, my heart really goes out to her at the point where they send her to the Silent Sisters. Like, I went to private school, my whole childhood, and it wasn't a lot of fun. And I understand like running across the Narrow Sea to get rid of that. So to get out of that. And this would be potentially. No, she's not tied to the Fagon Blackfire theory. This is way before that.
It is way before that, but there is some, there's some debate on where her line dies. It's like, oh, does her line continue? Because she does have 3 sons, and possibly more children. We don't know. So it's like, what are the descendants of Sarah doing right now? Are they around and kicking it? So.
Yeah, I think there is a certain parallel because Illyrio's Sarah, he keeps her grayscale hands in a box because that's
Yeah.
real normal and stuff.
Yeah.
That she would have been the Blackfire. That's what we're talking about. Illyrio and Sarah Blackfire are the parents of Fagon, essentially. I think that the naming parallel could be there to make us think of Sarah, child of Jaehaerys and Alysanne, like long lost Targaryen who is over in Essos, kind of thing.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. And then, yeah, I think there's, again, like a sadness to the idea of she escapes across the narrow sea and probably falls into sexual slavery and then becomes a slaver herself. Like, I think people are like, oh, she's just a terrible person. But I'm like, it's, again, most of Jaehaerys and Alysanne's children are just marred in these very tragic tales that I feel like are there to kind of show you the flaws and the issues within the Targaryens in general. And I mean, with her too, obviously there's discussions of like double standards and misogyny and all these things that we can examine. And
it's this old thing about like the kid who doesn't want to go into the family business. Only it's the royal version. It's like not everybody's going to give a crap about the prophecy and the White Walkers and all this stuff. Like some people are just not into it. I really find Daeron the Drunkard to be an interesting exploration in this, especially as George is talking about prophecy. And, I really compare like Aegon the Conqueror and his sisters, I guess, working, conquering Westeros because of the prophecy. I compare them to Rhaegar and Daeron the Drunkard and these other people that like kind of show you the burden of prophecy that it puts on you. It's not all, running off with another woman for funsies. It's
and it would make sense too then, like we were saying earlier, to kind of bring it back with, maybe Rhaena being aware of these prophecies and stuff, and that's why her own personal life was so tumultuous, of her going place to place and constantly having a new favorite group of girls that she's around in order to kind of distract from these burdens. I feel like you see that a lot with these dragon dreamers that are plagued by these dreams and the heavy burden of prophecy.
Yeah, that's how I always contextualize the Aegon's prophecy thing. It's like it's an extra thing that they have to deal with, and it grinds people down pretty hard. Rhaegar, I do the reading Rhaegar skits here for various purposes, and my whole take on him is like I make him out to be this sort of overconfident buffoon, kinda. And there is that aspect to him because he's trying to win a war and fulfill prophecy all at the same time. And he's just like, hold on, let me just go run and win the war, and then I'll be back to finish raising our prophecy baby together. And it's like, man, you really thought you could pull a lot of stuff off there, buddy.
Yeah, he was overly ambitious, to say the least. So...
But he's also, it's potentially just doing what he felt like it was incumbent upon him to do. It's like, oh, well, this is what it seems I must be a warrior. Like, this is what I've been handed, so I'm going to step up and...
Oh, and we see this constantly. Like, I would not be surprised if, with Egg, if he got this idea in his mind of, oh, we've, multiple people in the family have had, dreams and prophecies and visions of a bald-headed person hatching dragons. That's going to be me, and so I have to get all the eggs together and all the family, and we have to get ready for this. I'm going to be the one to bring back the dragons. And like you said, he has this, line about knowing this prophecy that the dragons are going to return, and he hopes that it's his egg that hatches. So I think we kind of see this time and time again of, these characters engaging in prophecy, thinking that they're the one, and it's got this level of irony to it. So...
Yeah. I explored this a little bit in my False Dragons video a couple weeks ago, where I was talking about the Wheel of Time and how there are these false dragons in the Wheel of Time that think they're the chosen ones, but aren't, but they're still interesting in different ways. So I do think George is exploring that whole question of like, what if you think you're the chosen one and you're not? For Rhaegar, he thought it was him. Then he thought it was his kid. He was kind of right, but it was wrong kid. And, it's... Yeah,
he maybe saw Dany in a vision and thought, that's my kid, and that's going to be the one that I'm going to have next with the dragons. Yeah, there's a lot. Was this the video where you go into the 3 false dragons, where it's
Stannis,
Euron, and Fagon? Yeah.
Yep.
That makes sense. But anyways... something, and again, like this prophecy thing, this self-fulfilling prophecy being wrong, I feel like on a smaller scale, we see that as well, even with the children of Jaehaerys and Alysanne, because it's like you have Sarah, who, you know, for all intents and purposes, acts terrible and does terrible things. And then we see the next child, Visera, it feels like kind of bears the brunt of that. It's like all the terrible things that the previous child did. The next child gets, you know, almost blamed for it and saddled with something that then in turn ends in her own tragedy. She is, you know, this child that is supposed to be like the most beautiful, but it's said that she doesn't really have an interest in boys. She kind of just plays them off each other. And Alysanne, for some reason,
is she the one that dies in a horse riding accident at 14 or something?
Yep. And Alysanne has this idea in her mind that Visera wants to be queen, even though there's no other really explanation as to why or an indication of that. You know, she matches her with Theomore Manderly, who for all intents and purposes is probably about like 60 years old and has had 4 wives and has a ton of heirs already. And, you know, so Visera, in an attempt, goes to seduce her brother Balon, shows up drunk, he turns her away and doesn't want her. And this is where Alysanne is like, well, it's because she wants to be queen. But at this time, Aemon is still alive and he's heir. So Balon's not heir. So I'm like, why would you think that means she wants to be queen? To me, I think she just didn't want to get shipped off to the north. I think she probably was just like, if I can secure a match with my family here, I get to stay in King's Landing. But
she tries to seduce one of her brother, Balon?
She tries to seduce her brother Balon, who I believe is like 14 years older than her by this point. I believe Alyssa has died. And he turns her away and is like, no, I'm good. And so because of this, Alysanne is like, oh, well, because she wants to be queen. But Balon is not the heir yet. So it's like, what gave you that indication? Like I said,
well,
I
it's moving up the ladder. It's
away,
getting closer,
you know?
I guess. But yeah.
Yeah. And so obviously this doesn't work out. She's going to be shipped off. She goes on a joyride with her friends the night before and is thrown from her horse at the bottom of Aegon's High Hill and breaks her neck. And I think it is intentional that it's at the bottom of Aegon's High Hill, you know? This concept of she tried to climb the ladder a bit. She wanted, you know, she wanted to maybe be queen. She wanted to marry a Targaryen, her brother. She got a Manderly. She died, you know, it feels important. But again, it's this idea of like the sins of the previous sibling is then, you know, blamed on the next sibling and it ends tragically. So
I thought of something a second ago when you mentioned that Sarah dyed the Kingsguard cloaks pink. Sansa dyes one Kingsguard cloak green.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
And Sansa's got some, like, a lot of faith, Septa, Silent Sister, kind of adjacent stuff going on. I'm not sure where the parallel goes there, but Sansa, Sarah.
I feel like, yeah, there might be a bit of a connection somehow.
See what you can do with that. Yeah, I know you like the parallels, but I just noticed that one. And then so Gale is the winter child, right?
She is, and she's the last born child, but I want to mention really quick too, there's 2 more before her. There's Gaemon and there's Valerian. And Gaemon is named after Gaemon the Glorious, you know, this one of the best Targaryens that was there kind of at the beginning when they got Dragonstone, and he it says he dies when he's less than 3 months old. So again, that threes. And then Valerian also is sickly and dies within a fortnight. And so I don't think it's again a coincidence that we have a child named Gaemon who's trying to invoke this, you know, top of the line Targaryenism. We have a child whose name Valerian, you know, kind of evokes Valyria, and both of them die rather quickly and tragically.
Yeah, so I got something for you on that. You said died in a fortnight, was it?
I believe so, yeah. I have it written down here. Yeah, Valerian, it says he was small and sickly. He died a fortnight before his first name day. So. Okay,
so he was before his first name day. So he's kind of like a neverborn. This is Azor Ahai Weirwood stuff. So when you die in a fortnight or something like that, that's dying at the Night Fort. For example, Aemond One Eye, who has very obvious Night's King symbolism with his blue star eye, He takes a fortnight to arrive at Harrenhal. Remember, Daemon is marking the Weirwood Tree. 13 marks.
Yes.
It's on the 14th
Okay.
day that he shows up in night black armor with a Witch Queen. So that's yeah. Anytime you see fortnight, take a look at it and think, is this talking about the Night Fort, Night's Queen, Night's King stuff? Excuse me. So you just said it was Valerian, who's like basically a stand-in for the idea of a Valerian. A dragon person died at the Night Fort. Yeah. His name is Azor Ahai, and he became Night's King at the Night Fort, giving his seed and soul to Night's Queen. Something like that, I think, is what we're talking about.
Yeah, and then you have the 13th born child, Gale, who, like you're saying, is called the Winter Child. So I don't think that is.
So there's a bunch of it. There's the shivers, Daenerys with the shivers. Oh, Gale, as in like a storm. A winter storm child. Okay. That reminds me a lot of...
And it's ironic because they tell everyone that she dies of summer fever. But she doesn't. We know that she doesn't. She actually, fell pregnant by a traveling singer and had a miscarriage and ended up drowning herself in the Blackwater Bay, very tragically. So.
Oh, that's right. Okay. Yeah. That's definitely... Anytime you're drowning in the sea, that's like probably going into the Weirwood Net Sea, like Catelyn Stark. Gives herself a Weirwood face and then drowns in the Green Fork, which is like the Green Sea. Same idea.
Well, this idea of like her child is stillborn, never really lived, sacrificing the children, like that kind of thing, and then going into the
And it seems like that Neverborn thing that George uses in the, I guess it's the pitch letter summary of the original story. It talks about the others and the the Neverborn. And that just seems like, children that are given to the others and never get to be born normally. Just like Stannis's swimmers that became the shadow babies or whatever. They were never born. So that makes sense. Yeah, Gale the Winter Child drowns in Blackwater Bay. Child never born. Yeah, there's a lot of other symbolism running through these kids here. And Alysanne, she is a Night's Queen figure. At the end of her life, she gets snow white hair. Her eyes are blue. She's one of the Targaryens with blue eyes. And she rides any of the silver or white dragons, I believe, is essentially functioning as an ice dragon. So that includes Viserion and certainly would include Silverwing.
Yeah, and it's interesting because... Maegelle, it's like, Alysanne had lost so many of her children. And so near the end, she became very close to Maegelle and Gale. So you have these 3 Targaryen women. Maegelle dies in 96 AC of contracting grayscale. Gale dies in 99 AC of drowning herself. And then Alysanne leaves King's Landing to go to Dragonstone and dies less than a year later after Gale. And so I feel like that succession of all of that, again, you have... these 3s in 96, 99, the grayscale, like it all feels, again, very intentional and very metaphorical and thematic.
And then, and basically the one flaw in Jaehaerys' reign is that he didn't listen to Alysanne a couple of times when he probably should have. And the other thing I like to mention with Alysanne is that some of the stuff that Jaehaerys gets credit for should probably be credit given to both of them. And the thing that is the most powerful, obviously, is when she goes to Mole's Town and listens to the testimonies of all the women and then outlaws the right of the Lord's, that prima nocta.
The right to the first night. Yeah. I think, too, with them, it's interesting because George is kind of exploring these ideas of, like, just because you're a good ruler doesn't mean you're a perfect parent, and so... And we see this of like, they do a lot of great things. They're remembered very well, but then their inner family unit is just surrounded by turmoil. So.
And he also passes over one of the women that would have been heir. Was that Rhaenys or was that somebody else?
Is this in regards to...
One of their 2 quarrels was over him refusing to name...
Oh, yes, I believe it was. I believe it was over not naming Rhaenys.
Because she was the child of Aemon. who was the eldest born. So if
Yeah,
she
so
had
it
been a
really
man,
should
she
have
would have
gone.
been the next in
Yes,
line. Yeah.
it should have gone to her. Yeah.
So even the whole Dance of the Dragons mess, as much as we blame it on Viserys, he obviously did set the table for it. And Otto gets a lot of blame. There's really a lot of blame to go around. And eventually you do get to Rhaenyra and Alicent and all them and stuff too. But really it does start with Jaehaerys ignoring his wife and essentially enforcing the classic definition of patriarchy. So,
Well, I mean, and you can even go even further back in the fact that some people thought that, Rhaena should have been crowned queen, you know. And I think it's interesting too because Rhaena, when talking with Jaehaerys over the fact that Alyssa Farman stole these eggs, there might be other people with dragons out there. She's talking about if they have to go to war, and Jaehaerys says, I will be riding on Vermithor, and obviously you'll be riding Dreamfire. And she mentions Alysanne, and he says she has no part in this. And Rhaena says, I'm Visenya and she is Rhaenys. I've never seen it any other way. And so I feel like it all then leads up back to Visenya, and these things of like, should Visenya have been crowned, and so it really does, trickle all the way down throughout the family.
yeah, it's like, if they're defying all the other laws of men, they're doing incest, and they're riding dragons, and they're lizard people, and like, yeah, there's no reason. They very well could have said male or female, it makes no matter. Dragon's
Just
a
the
dragon.
firstborn, yeah, whoever's the eldest,
Yeah. And I think George is, and we talked about this during the week, like the people who criticize George for being promoting violence or sexism and stuff, not understanding that there's a critique happening, or in the case of the Valerians with the racial supremacy and the breeding elitism and all this stuff. And it's like, yeah, no, there's pretty obvious critiques going on. And this is a great example of that. It's like one of the entire civil war of the Dance of the Dragons essentially flows from not nominating the most qualified person, but rather limiting yourself to only one of the two genders. So
exactly. I mean, a lot of these things, it's an exploration and a critique of these ideas based on our own world's history, and then taking these ideas and, almost satirically turning them up, a notch all the way up to 10 in order to examine these concepts. And I can't imagine how you then view that and think it's an endorsement of it, but many people do. So it's a important distinction to make, though, that it's like it's an examination of it. It's not just because authors write about something doesn't mean that they like it or agree with it. So
yeah, it's just that George is not. It's not like Full House where we pause and we have the lesson spelled out by one of the characters at the end of every chapter. So.
Yes, exactly. Which is becoming, honestly, it feels like a little more common in, especially like TV writing. There's the concept of, second screenwriting now, where characters have to really repeat themselves and almost turn to the camera and say, and by the way, I'm the bad guy and what I'm doing is not good. And that's just not the type of story that this is. So.
Indeed.
Yes.
So those are the many children of Jaehaerys
children.
and Alysanne. And as we know, none of their direct children sat the Iron Throne. It passed next to Viserys instead of Rhaenys, and this was the the Great Council. Now, just to go back to Rhaenys, where did she come from? Well, she is the child of Aemon and Jocelyn Baratheon. So we see that Robar Baratheon. Whoa, hold on, what's going on here? Is this like incest? So Alyssa Velaryon, she marries Robar Baratheon later in life because Aenys dies, and they have a child who's Jocelyn Baratheon. I forgot about that.
Yeah, so I guess it really is. It's keeping it close knit.
So she's half Targaryen, Jocelyn Baratheon, and then she marries Aemon Targaryen. So Rhaenys is like kind of 3/4. That's interesting. Okay. I forgot about that. And they're treating the House Baratheon kind of like the Velaryons here, where they're going back to them repeatedly for marriages.
Which again feels like a hint that they are Valyrian in origin somehow.
Totally.
because
Totally.
they're not doing this with every Valyrian house. I mean, they're not doing this with the Celticars, so it feels
I know we gotta. Do
yeah.
they smell bad or what?
Right? Everyone just clowns on them. No one wants to touch them with a 10-foot pole, even though they have a ton of treasure and cool stuff. I'm just like, what is it about them that they're like, nah, we're good? I don't
They
know.
got too much crack point on them.
Hmm.
They do
Yeah.
smell bad. They smell like deep one blubber.
Hmm. Yeah, they're too close to House Upcliff. They're too close to weird fishy stuff going on. So.
They're totally like, what about the Celtic? Oh yeah, oh no, yeah, no. They're the invitations got lost in the mail. They were totally invited to the feast, and they couldn't make it. So,
Exactly. Yeah.
funny stuff. Okay, so then we come to basically the House of the Dragon history. I
Hmm.
don't suppose we need to go into all of that. We got season 3 coming.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think. The two characters that, well, besides Nettles, who's not there at all, the two
Yeah.
characters that were minimized in the most unfortunate ways in season 1, I thought were Harwin and Laena. And I thought they both were interesting match because, of course, Laena is, Daemon's wife before Rhaenyra, and Harwin is Rhaenyra's husband before Daemon. And it seems like they were kind of sidelined in order to play up the Daemon-Rhaenyra thing. But it's unfortunate because I think those were two really interesting characters. So do you have takes on them?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I love Lena in the books, and I very much feel like she was sidelined. It feels like they kind of had this concept in their mind of like people can only have one true love, and so they kind of try to yada yada these people away. But I think, there could have been some really beautiful stories there that would have made us as viewers care a lot more about these characters. I think a lot about the years that it says that Rhaenyra spent on Dragonstone with Lena, and they were kind of almost like parenting their children in this weird, like, quadruple, like, not traditional, not
That's
of
what
the
it sounds
seven,
like. It sounded like
group.
some interesting times. Yes, very non-standard family structure stuff that was somehow
Yeah.
working for everyone. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe a little more Valyrian, a little less Westerosi, a little less Faith of the Seven, and that's why it was
It
looked
takes
down
an
upon so
incest
much.
village.
Yeah, exactly. But I would have loved to see those characters more. I would have loved to see them, just a little bit more about them. I would have loved to see Lena claim Vagar. That would have been nice because I think there's an interesting story there with her being so
Ertach
young.
even drew it. He drew a
Yeah.
picture of it. You've seen it probably, yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. So I think it's definitely a missed opportunity. I think that's my biggest gripe is the very quick time jumping we do, and I think it does come at the cost of sacrificing some of those characters. And I mean, George has said that he would have loved to write the story of Harwin and Rhaenyra. Like he feels like there is a story there.
I really
So
thought so. And torturously, they cast very compelling actors for young, middle, and old Lena, and then
yeah,
Harwin. Like the moments they were on the
for
screen
sure.
were incredible. Because obviously, oh, I'm drawing. Oh, Jesus Christ. The actor that plays Rhaenyra, their name
Oh, Emma
is
Darcy.
Emma Darcy. It's been a while. I'm in Night of the
Hmm.
Seven. It's been a while since we did House of the Dragon. Emma
Right.
Darcy, incredible actor,
Hmm.
absolutely incredible. I'm a huge
Hmm.
fan.
Me too.
And Emma on screen with the
Hmm.
Harwin actor, like they only had a couple scenes, but I was like, whoa, that's a
The
family
chemistry was
right there.
flying.
Like it
Yeah,
was compelling.
it felt compelling. It felt real, and I think it also helped humanize Rhaenyra a lot more. Like it adds this warmth, to the unit that I would have really liked to have seen.
It's a
So
perfect mix of her being mother and
hmm.
heir.
Hmm.
She's carrying the bloody baby
Hmm.
around, but playing
Yeah.
court politics with Alicent at the same time. She's
Hmm.
having a tender moment with the kids
Hmm.
and Harwin, but also thinking about, again, the
Hmm.
politics of it.
Hmm.
The way that her and Laenor have a working agreement, but like
Hmm.
it starts to, Laenor turns into a bit of a slacker and a drinker.
Hmm.
Like that all was
Hmm.
really interesting to me. I liked how that, I just think it needed like another episode to breathe right there.
I think so too. I think it would have been really nice. And, of course, too, like George is playing with these ideas of like the princess and the knight, and obviously, not really a knight, but gold cloak, these dynamics. And so it does feel a little bit like the fairy tale romance right there, and then the bubble is burst. And so it would have been really nice to have a little bit more time with them just to really solidify those relationships and make us care about them a little bit more. And the
Yep.
same goes for Lena and Damon. I am still mad that we didn't get the scene of him like holding her on the stairs, on the steps.
Yes.
I think that would have been really important because they do some odd things with Damon in the show. They cut out the scene of him comforting his daughters. I think those moments would have been really nice to have in the show, in order to just make him a little bit more dimensional. So
We agree. Yeah, I think most people agreed to some version of that take.
mhm.
Doesn't take away from. I mean, he's pretty ruthless and hardcore at many points. So yeah, it would have been a more well-rounded character. But yeah, Lena's death was interesting. But there was that. To me, I wanted when Damon shows up like kind of a loser on Driftmark, and Lena is betrothed to, what was it, like the prince of
Oh, it was a prince of some other
the
place, and then
son
they
of the
all
Sea
start
Lord.
yeah, the son of the Sea Lord, and they all start kind of mysteriously dying, isn't? And
Well,
it's kind of
Well, no, it was that guy was kind of a chump, and
yeah,
basically within about 2 weeks, Damon provoked him into
hmm
having to defend his honor in a duel, and quickly killed
hmm
him, and then betrothed
yeah,
Lena like a week later, or 2 weeks later, or something. So
yeah. I think it would have been nice too to see him, yeah, have these kind of almost sly moves of let me just slide in here real quick, and I think it would have been nice too to see their relationship bloom because we get really just that one brief scene at Rhaenyra's wedding, but we don't really follow up on it. So.
yeah, it just jumps right to they're in Braavos and they've got
hmm
kids and
hmm
yeah. All right. Well, let's see here. Okay, so skipping ahead a bit. Skipping ahead a bit. You have to love the depiction of Rhaenyra by
hmm
Polly M. Here, she's all angry.
hmm Yeah, these drawings are great.
They're pretty. They've got a lot of character.
hmm
Okay, so interesting post House of the Dragon stuff. Baela and Rhaena. Let's see. It is Rhaena, who is called Rhaena of Pentos, who
hmm
marries into House Hightower. Is that correct?
hmm I believe so, yes.
And then Baela marries Alan Velaryon, right?
hmm Yeah.
And they continue the line of Velaryon, which seems like
hmm
very fitting. Will make a lot of sense on the show. I'm really looking forward to that.
hmm
Alan Baela. I guess we'll get that next season, right?
Yeah, and it'll be interesting because obviously Alan and Adam are both aged up a bit, is what So I'd be curious to see if they do keep the dynamics the same in that way.
They probably will. The actress that plays Baela
hmm
probably comes across a couple years older than the character is
hmm
supposed to be, quote
Yeah.
unquote. So they'll probably roll with that.
Yeah.
It's too important to the future, you
It
know.
is, yeah, for sure. And then it's interesting, yeah, with, what seems like we're kind of, splicing together Reyna and Nettles, what that's going to do, because obviously here we have Reyna, like you said, marrying into House Hightower, having children, but as we know, Nettles has a very different end, a
We're
kind of
not going to get the
mysterious
fire.
end.
Look, we did get Stoneheart. We're not getting the Fire
Yeah,
Witch. We're not. No, that's
no,
not happening. I hate to
no.
burst your bubble, but
No, for sure, but it is, so it's interesting to see like which aspects are they going to keep? Is Reyna going to keep her dragon?
they'll probably have to kill off the dragon, won't they? Yeah.
hmm
Yeah,
Yeah,
she's going to
I
marry in because her marrying House Hightower
yeah,
is obviously important for sewing up the realm afterwards. So that probably should
exactly.
happen.
Yeah, so it makes me wonder how and when is that going to
Sheep
happen?
stealer,
I
no.
know.
Maybe
So
maybe it'll go back wild again.
maybe and
That
just
could be.
return to the
Started
Vale.
off as a wild dragon, uneasy
hmm
partnership. It's like, oh, I shouldn't have ever gotten mixed up with all the Seven Kingdoms business.
Yeah, and then it just kind of goes back to being free. Because I mean, we don't get any mention. I mean, I don't think we're getting the cannibal at all, and so similarly, we kind of have that dragon be a dragon that
What
just
do you
kind of
mean we're
disappears.
not
So
getting the cannibal?
So I feel like, I mean, I wish we were, but I think at this point, the dragons are too expensive. They have too many dragons already. So I wouldn't be surprised if they give that kind of,
Cannibal would
mysterious
be hella
appearance to
random
Sheepstealer. It
if
would
it
be.
showed
It
up
would,
and just started eating people or something. Yeah.
at this point, yeah. And Grey Ghost and all that. So
Yeah.
unfortunately, I love Grey Ghost. So
We could all imagine the Grey Ghost is out there catching fish, living as no one's
hmm
bothered him in this
hmm
timeline and just still
hmm
catching fish.
just short miniseries, just Grey Ghost cam, and it's just like nature footage of like, and you just see a dragon fly by every once in a while, catch a
Very
fish.
peaceful music
Yeah.
and stuff. Yeah.
hmm
I like
Yeah.
it. I like
hmm
it. That's like the ASMR.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah,
So
Rhaena of Pentos has, a bunch of children, I believe, right? And then those children kind of continue that line. And is that where because I see people talk about you know like Marjorie, being connected into the High Towers in that way, and because people connect her to Alicent a lot, but I think technically isn't she connected through the line with Rhaena?
does Al I can't remember. I don't know if Rhaena marries the ruling Lord Hightower or a different
Mm-hmm.
Hightower. So I don't
Mm-hmm.
think the official line comes from her.
Okay.
But if somebody can look that up, Rhaena did not marry the heir. The chat says yes.
Mm-hmm.
I believe
Okay.
that is correct. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the Hightowers. Allery Hightower has silver hair because of the Great Empire of the
Mm-hmm.
Dawn.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Confirmed. All right.
I mean,
So
that's what I think. So.
glad we're with that. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and Alicent looked like Sarah to
Sarah.
Jaehaerys
Mm-hmm.
because Great Empire of the
Mm-hmm.
Dawn, exactly.
And I think with the show, they were just like, we can't have everyone be blonde. We can't, we can't keep doing this. But Rhaenys can be blonde for some reason. Who knows?
I mean, it's really hard to color eyes in post production. It would just take too much time. It's not practical to expect them. Only us YouTubers, well, only
Mm-hmm.
you anyway,
Mm-hmm.
can do that. So.
Yeah. I think for my Denora video, I did give myself purple eyes as well, and so it really doesn't take too long. But if they don't want to do it, they don't want to do it. But we might be getting heterochromia in A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, right? Maybe.
I can't. I was
I
hoping
can't
you could
tell.
settle this for me. I wasn't sure if it was just people looking at a photo with weird lighting too hard, or because the actor doesn't have heterochromia, right?
I believe the actor that is playing Valar does, but the actor who's playing Baelor, I don't think he does. I think from what I've seen, there's the clip in the screenshot, and I sent it to someone where I said, did they forget to put his heterochromia here? And they said, no, the only place that's been reported is Westerosis, and that image has the brightness turned up a ton. And so I wonder if that's been doctored a little bit. So I don't think we know, and I don't think we'll quite know till the show's out. But knowing that, I'm thinking maybe not. Maybe that's not what we're doing. I wish it was. I would love heterochromia, but
Well, we should get to the royal bastards here.
yeah.
Speaking of heterochromia, but real quick, I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to ask you about
Mm-hmm.
who was it? Somebody in the middle of the House of the Dragon stuff. It'll come back to me.
Is this in regards to heterochromia or
No, it was just a minute ago where we were talking about all the House of the Dragon characters. There was another character that I wanted to discuss real quick, but well, I mean, Alice Rivers is the one we're all waiting for the story of. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
17 years of blank Harrenhal rule where no one's in charge. She could have been in charge at any part of that time. She claimed to have been pregnant by Aemond.
And I still need to make a video on this. I started making it like a year ago when House the Dragon was on air, but as each episode came out, there was more and more evidence to support my video, so I kept having to go back and film more clips, and it just became a mess. But, and I thought that it was kind of put to rest, but I'm still seeing people say that maybe she's a Red Priestess and Melisandre, and I don't believe that at all. So I need to put that video out there where I wanted to examine what they're doing with Helena as well as Melisandre to kind of showcase the mystical kind of vaguely witchy women we've gotten, and how Alice is going to be different from that. How I think she very much is a an old gods woods witchy type character instead. So I
Definitely.
definitely think that's what they're doing with her. Clearly, and I thought that was pretty obvious with the weirwood tree stuff, but I'm still seeing people say maybe she's Melisandre. So I feel like we need to put that to rest. So
I think that she is, well, speaking in terms of
mm-hmm.
archetypes, she's a
Mm-hmm.
very good Nissa as a child of
Mm-hmm.
the forest character, which
Mm-hmm.
means that in real life, she may be a green seer. I definitely think that women can be green seers. I think Lyanna
Mm-hmm.
may be a green seer. Her and Rhaegar went to the Isle of Faces. Why did they do that?
I could see that. Yeah.
To activate her gifts so she could eat
Mm-hmm.
weirwood paste. That would be
Mm-hmm.
interesting. That way, it's not all like
Mm-hmm.
Lyanna just believing what Rhaegar says about dreams and prophecies and stuff. Like,
Mm-hmm.
they went and talked to the Green Men.
Mm-hmm.
So why did they need to do that? Like, maybe so Lyanna could figure out what was going on, have her gifts awaken, and see some visions of the future.
Yeah, I think that makes sense too. I do think maybe there is some, idea that Alice is much older than she says she is. I mean, that's kind of proposed in Fire and Blood as a
Yeah.
possibility.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it used to be this gray area, but I think it's now just gray area. She had a really interesting theory on this a while ago that proposed that she was this witch from kind of the Stormlands area, because I believe there was like a house in that area that has an owl as its sigil, and like it just lined up really well.
Hmm.
That I feel like could make sense. But again, this witch is like a woods witchy old god type witch, so it just feels very fitting.
Well, obviously, the show is doing something with green men. They've given
Mm-hmm.
us a green man at Harrenhal.
Which I'm like,
Oh,
yes,
this is the thing I wanted
exciting.
to ask you about. Adam Valarion stopping by the Isle of Faces.
I we better be seeing that. We better be
Well,
getting
they're
that.
obviously setting that up. My question is,
Yeah, with the green men.
what's going on there? Why are the
That's a
green
great
men
question.
taking a hand in the dance of the dragons? Like, what's...
Right? Well, I mean, I think it maybe goes back to these prophecies and this idea of like, hey, we are going to need dragons eventually, for the long night. Like we do, like it's very clear that dragons are important. We need the dragons to be here. We need them not to all die. And it's very clear that what he learns kind of changes him, in a way. It
Oh,
feels
right,
very
because he's
important.
just been
So,
betrayed by Rhaenyra, essentially, who tried to arrest him. Corlys warned
mm-hmm,
him. He flees
mm-hmm,
King's Landing because Rhaenyra's gone paranoid at this point.
mm-hmm,
And then we're told that, like, oh, he still went and fought for Rhaenyra because he wanted to redeem
mm-hmm,
the
mm-hmm,
name of bastards everywhere. I think you're kind of hitting on it here. It could be that he went to the Isle of Faces for some reason, and then that's when he got redirected. Why did he go there? Did he
redirected
have a dream, maybe?
redirected, I think, yeah, maybe a dream, or maybe, yeah, in an instance with these green men where he is made aware of the prophecy of like, no, we need the Targaryen line to continue. And so maybe he himself thought that needs to be through Rhaenyra. Maybe it was a bit of a moment of forgiveness of like, I understand now why she's acting the way she's acting. And we need to, again, be unified in this happening. So I think it could definitely be something like that. But it will be interesting to see, is it a dream? I mean, we have seen some green men, so I definitely think they will be popping back up. So
And we know I'm a fan. I mean, I'm selling Green Man t-shirts over here. Click the link below in the description. I've got 2 different ones. So I'm happy about that. Clip
mm-hmm,
clopping his way onto the screen. I think
mm-hmm,
what we need to gather together is uh, the idea of, so Aegon's prophecy says that he needs to be ruling Westeros to be able to fight the others. So there
mm-hmm,
is this already an intersection between the others, who I think would be tied to Weirwoods and Children of the Forest and stuff, and the Dragon people. But
mm-hmm,
then we get really, it's like the Woods Witch, oh God, the Ghost of High Heart.
mm-hmm.
Taking a direct hand in steering the Targaryen marriages and bloodlines, and then
Yep.
Rhaegar and Lyanna stopping by the Isle of Faces.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that's like showing a pretty consistent, the old gods are messing with the Targaryen dynasty quite a bit.
Yeah.
So I guess the
I
prince that
think
was
so for
promised
sure.
would be the obvious reason, but there may be more to it, like
Mm-hmm.
around that.
Yeah, but I think you're pretty spot on with it. I think it is, yeah, the old gods kind of having a hand in messing with these things in order to try and guide things down the path they need to go. And I think where we run into problems is when certain things then mess with this magical timeline a little bit and steer things a bit off course, or there are these like really insane events that are then felt throughout time, that are then like echoed again and again. Like obviously we think about, the insurgence of the Long Night in general with like the Bloodstone Emperor and the Amethyst Empress, or events like the Red Wedding, where it's very clear these things echo throughout time and poke into the timeline and kind of cause issues. But despite that, it still seems like, all of these forces in the world are trying to keep things on track as much as they can.
It is tricky steering the future. I don't know if you've seen that show on Dark or on Netflix called Dark.
I know of it.
Highly recommend.
Yeah, I'll have to check it out. But yeah, I've heard of it, especially in regards to these kind of concepts. So
yeah, they go all the way on that. But let's not get started on Dark. Okay, so this brings us to so the sons of, and I'm going to recap a lot of this history in my Blackfire Rebellion video this week. But basically, you have these two branches with Rhaenyra and Daemon's sons. There's Aegon the Third. And there is Viserys II. They both will reign. Aegon reigns first, and he reigns for like 17 years or something. He marries Daenerys Velaryon, and their kids are Daeron the Young Dragon, Baelor the Blessed, and then the three maidenvault women, Dana, Rhaena, and Elena. And then their cousins, the children of Viserys II and Laera Rogaire, right? Mm-hmm. Are Aegon the Unworthy, Aemon the Dragon Knight, and Nerys. Yep. So this really sets the table for this new generation, kind of a resetting of the decks here. And this is like just really interesting stuff. The Aegon the Unworthy generation leading into the generation with the Great Bastards. Like there are so many interesting characters. Daeron the Young Dragon and Baelor sort of come before. Young Dragon has the quick conquest of Dorne, writes a book about it, but he really only reigns for 4 years, and he's cut down at a parley in Dorne with Blackfire in hand. 3 Kingsguard are killed. Aemon the Dragon Knight is taken captive. Then Baelor walks all the way down there and frees Aemon the Dragon Knight and basically gives Dorne every concession they could possibly ever want, and doesn't punish them at all for killing the king.
Yep.
And this begins the whole like Dornish integration into the Seven Kingdoms, but very much on Dorne's terms, which then generates resentment from many of the Marcher Lords and things. And then, of course, Aegon the Unworthy, being so corrupt, a lot of lords were able to gain power at court by selling him their daughters, essentially over and over again, same thing. And then so when Daeron takes the throne, he cleans house, and a bunch of lords are out of power suddenly, and they become resentful and join in the Blackfire Rebellion, more or less. So let's talk about some of the personalities in that framework. Daeron the Young Dragon is just somebody that wants to conquer. He's obviously a good strategist, and he serves as this example that Benjen mentions to Jon, basically against seeking fame and glory and thinking that it's all grand, and look how many people he lost, and he died when he was 18. What do you think about Baelor the Blessed? That's the one I want to ask you about, leading into the Maidenvault stuff. But like, what's the mix of, is his Targaryen madness? Is this all religious fundamentalism? Is it the snake venom?
I mean, I think like a lot of things with George, I think it's a combination of things. And I mean, who's to say that he is not one of these people that is plagued by dreams, that is just like, maybe fully rejecting it and then becoming very devout in his faith of like, I need to, purge myself of all of these terrible things, and I don't want anything to do with this, so I'm gonna stay away from all the Targaryen women. It
feels a lot like trying to pray the gay away, doesn't it?
Yeah, maybe he's trying to pray the prophecy away. He doesn't want anything to do with it.
And it also is kind of like Daeron losing himself in drink, Daeron the drunkard.
Yeah.
losing himself in drink. Like, these are extreme behavioral reactions to a lot of pressure, potentially.
If I was having crazy prophecy dreams of, like Bloodraven in a weirwood tree and the others, I think I would turn to drinking too. I would be like, there's something definitely wrong. I mean, it's terrifying. And I think, yeah, I mean, even Daenerys's dreams, her flesh burning away, like they're very kind of graphic and probably scary for some people. So I wouldn't be surprised if it is a coping mechanism.
So yeah, I enjoy the mix of crazy with Baelor. I know George was raised in a Catholic Christian environment, so he definitely has a lot of the same thoughts that many of us do about, oppressive religious environments, but also understanding the wisdom that comes along with really any religion. Baelor is definitely the extreme. Like, he is a zealot. He's almost like, I think about him like a cult leader, like a David Koresh style. Like, he didn't go in that dark of a direction, but he's fully insane. And then when Dana has a bastard child, Daemon Blackfire, and he's so freaked out by it that he begins fasting for 40 days and essentially kills himself.
Yeah. Yeah, he can't cope. It's absolutely insane. And with the Maidenvault women too, one thing that I thought was very interesting is, looking at like Nerys, who is compared to Daenerys, and then you have these three women locked away in the Maidenvault, and it kind of reminds me of Dany locking away her dragons. You have, Dana the Defiant, who escapes 3 times and causes all these problems. Obviously, Dany is never able to capture and trap Drogon, causes her all these issues. Drogon is Balerion come again, and as we know, Dana has Daemon Blackfire.
Drogon breathes Blackfire. Okay, I'm with you here.
Then you have Rhaena, who is like soft and sweet and a more feminine beauty. She's shy and dutiful. She's, interested in the quiet hobbies like needlework. And it reminds me of like the early descriptions of Rhaegar, of him being bookish to a fault and a little melancholic and playing his harp. And then you have Rhaena, who is, Elena, who is skinny and awkward and has a gold streak in her hair and carries around a little gold dragon egg.
The cream and gold dragon egg. Yes.
Cream and gold dragon egg. And it kind of reminds me of like Viserys carrying around his mother's crown, in all these places, these like vestigial symbols of the Targaryen house. They both have pale lilac eyes. They both have, kind of angry, cruel mouths. Like, there's these little hints that I don't think are necessarily, again, coincidental.
Okay, so this is called cooking, what you're doing. You've done it a couple times here. The chat is a fan. So thank you for coming and bringing your pearls of wisdom. Elena Targaryen, also, as you can see on the screen, she is the progenitor of House Longwaters. So this is the 6-foot member from under the grave thing, right? What's the guy? Who is it?
Oh, is this the
Plums?
Yeah, the Plums, Viserys Plum. So again, Viserys, being connected to Elena.
Right. So the story is that she marries the elderly Plum, and he dies on the wedding night because it was
on the wedding night.
Really intense,
Too shocked, and so there's rumor that obviously he was not the father.
And who the proposed father would be Aegon the Unworthy once again, right?
I believe so. I think that's the most popular theory.
Okay. Now that's...
And also, so the Plums, obviously we know Viserion likes Brown Ben Plum. So
okay, so the Longwaters are Elena's bastards with Alan Oakenfist. But the Plums also are connected. She also is the one who marries the Plum, right?
I believe so, yes. I believe Viserys Plum, is her child, I believe.
So there's a lot of alternate Targaryen bloodlines that come out of this Maidenvault. It must not have... Locking away women in a building must not be like the way to control them or something. I don't know.
In the same way that locking away your dragons is not the key to controlling them,
True. And this really, honestly, it ties back to the people like Sarah Targaryen who had skills that they could have offered the family, but the family couldn't make use of them, could not figure out how to assimilate them into the structure, and so they kind of spun out. Yeah. Okay, well, that's cool. That is interesting. She marries a Penrose and a Manwoody.
Oh yeah, I think what is it? Isn't one of them is married 3 times, I believe. So again, the threes. Yeah, had 3 husbands. So that's Elena.
Yeah. She's oh, and that's going to be like Viserion the dragon is going to have different riders. Like Tyrion is linked to Viserion, but so is Victarion and Euron.
I could see that. Yeah, and it's too, and I believe her last marriage, it said it's a marriage for love. So again, it's mirroring those prophecies Daenerys gets.
So who will be Viserion's rider after Euron? Huh.
Do we think maybe Viserion won't have a rider? Do we think Viserion it'll break the cycle?
I think no. I think Tyrion is going to have a quick ride on Viserion. Probably just one. I don't know that he'll actually bond with the dragon, but I just think he's going to get a quick dragon ride somehow in the heat of battle or something weird like that. But ultimately, once Victarion is stuffed in there, if that happens, then Viserion would be destined for Euron. And I do think Euron's definitely going to ride a dragon. And it's not going to be Rhaegal, and it's not going to be Drogon. So,
no. So if he dies, then I guess who is the third person that will ride him?
Oh, Quentin goes for Viserion.
Oh, okay, yeah, an attempted rider, an attempted claimant.
That would be like Old Man Plum who died.
Before
when he tried to ride the dragon, right?
Yeah, before he could even try. Yeah.
Well, as he was trying, it's like, wait, I could do it. I could.
Yeah, exactly. So George is having a cheeky little laugh.
All right, that's nice. I bet Tim will like that when he catches up to the stream eventually. Okay, so what else do we have to say about the whole maidenvault thing? I think we hit it. It hits on the themes of, like we said, House Targaryen occasionally acting not in its own interest by repressing people of the family who are different, mostly women, but occasionally other characters too that just don't fit in.
And then that kind of mirroring how the dragons suffer, metaphorically and physically. So
that's pretty good stuff. I think we cooked on that. All right, so let's see. Then we have, like I said, I'm going to go into Aegon the Unworthy and all of his depredations in the video. I got a whole section on him.
So many children. So many children.
Yeah, a lot of it has to do with, did he intend to sort of delegitimize Daeron and promote Daemon Blackfyre? One of the interesting things I came across is Aegon the Unworthy's 2 failed invasions of Dorne near the end of his reign. It's speculated that this was done to undermine Daeron's support. So Daeron is married, as you can see, to Mariah Martell. So the Dornish are going to defend Daeron's claim to the throne because that is House Martell. Hiccups come out of nowhere. That would be House Martell gaining. Baelor is Baelor. He's the heir to the throne, and he's half Martell. So if Aegon had tried to disown Daeron, the Dornish would have come fighting. And so maybe he preemptively attacked Dorne so that he could delegitimize Daeron and install Daemon Blackfyre, but it never happened.
That is an interesting thought, because I believe, too, didn't he kind of start whispering and sowing seeds, after the death of Daenerys, that his son, that Daeron was illegitimate anyways? Like, it's very cowardly, in my opinion, to wait until Daenerys and Aemon are dead, but it definitely seems like something that he was trying to do and wanting to do.
Yeah, and it also could have come out of the fact that, like, Aemon the Dragon Knight, Daenerys, and Daeron were the 3 people at court who opposed the misrule. So they formed a kind of a political bloc. Yeah. And so that I think it could be why, like, Aegon just kind of came to convince himself or believe that, like, oh, that's not my son.
Yeah.
A lot of times these things, like also with the Tywin Tyrion thing, like the father doesn't know necessarily if 2 people sleep with a woman in the same time frame, or even just could have, then it's just like the father is wondering, like, oh, well,
Mm-hmm.
maybe he's not my son,
Mm-hmm.
So it could be that kind of a thing where he always had a little bit of a doubt, and he convinced himself just because Daron made himself so inconvenient.
Yeah, yeah, or is it that he really wanted to believe it because he was so inconvenient? He was like, "There's no way that this incredible inconvenience is my child."
Right.
There's a lot of ways you could look at it.
It's the overreaction to Daemon. Daemon Blackfyre wins a squire's tourney at age 12, which
Hmm.
I'm sure is very important for a 12-year-old. But Aegon the Unworthy knights him
Hmm.
and gives him Blackfyre
Which
at
is
that moment
crazy.
when he's
Yeah.
friggin' 12.
12, it's crazy. And at this point, yeah, because it's like they don't have dragons anymore, so this is such an important symbol. It really does feel like he is trying to stir up stuff with this. So that's at least
Just
what
a
I think.
bad king all the way around.
Yeah,
But
yeah, just very
And
terrible.
so he has several bastards. The most
Hmm.
twisted thing is the way that he takes Barbara Bracken as his mistress,
Hmm.
sires Bittersteel.
Hmm.
Then, after they're made to leave court, they're
Hmm.
dishonored. Then he
Hmm.
takes Melissa Blackwood,
Hmm.
okay, Missy Blackwood,
Hmm.
and then he takes the teats, the mountains, the teats from the
Hmm.
Brackens and gives them to the Blackwoods, renames
Hmm.
them. But then a
Yeah.
couple years later, he's back with Bethany Bracken,
Hmm.
the younger sister, who's been groomed to seduce him. So, like,
Yeah, and I think there's not, I think it is, very clear that like Barbara is the Mary Bullen and Bethany is the Anne Bullen in this situation of like he has the one sister, then sends her away from court, and then this other sister is groomed to seduce him, and then he eventually has her killed for possible infidelity. I don't think that is, unintentional.
yeah, she sleeps with Miles Toyne, who goes on to
Hmm.
form the Kingswood Brotherhood, right?
Hmm. I believe so. Yes. Hmm.
Yeah. So again, this is the best period of history to me, beginning with that Aemon the Dragon Knight, Daeron the Young
Hmm.
Dragon, Baelor the Blessed era,
Hmm.
flowing into the Unworthy and all of this stuff. I mean, it is so messy.
It is so messy. I mean, and there's even the grossness of like, did he, sleep with mother and daughter both, and the daughter might have been his own daughter. Like it just gets pretty despicable even for Targaryens. But in a way would make great television. I feel like this is the period of time, this first Blackfire Rebellion and the lead up to it, that I would love to see adapted personally.
Yeah, a lot of times the bad king archetype is someone that is there at the beginning of the story and then gets
Mm-hmm.
toppled. But the reign of Aegon the Unworthy is so interesting because it goes on for a
Mm-hmm.
long time and he just keeps causing trouble.
Yep. Yep. Exactly. So.
And so then we get so we've got Melissa Blackwood, mother of
Mm-hmm.
Bloodraven,
Mm-hmm.
uh, Barbara Bracken, mother of Bittersteel.
Mm-hmm.
And then the most confusing one is Serenay of Lys, who is this
Yeah.
beautiful foreign witch woman, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And she is becoming Aegon's mistress after Aegon is just really let himself go, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
And one wonders how that even happened. Do you think Serenay was basically just gunning for power here?
I believe it's mentioned that she was brought over by the Hand at the time, who I think was a high tower. So that feels a bit politically intentional and mysterious.
Do you think maybe she didn't have a lot of agency?
I don't know if it. I think it might have been the opposite. I think maybe she had some political witchy ambition. Maybe that's what I like to think. It's a happier story that way. But I've mentioned it before. It's interesting that she doesn't have a last name that's given, but George has said that she hails from an ancient but impoverished Valyrian house, and that she's been living over in Lys with this impoverished Valyrian family and line. But we never get told what house she's from, which is interesting because there's not a lot of Valyrian named houses. She's rumored to maybe be a witch. She's incredibly beautiful and strange. And yeah, she kind of has this air of mystery to her. And so it's like, yeah, why does she want to be here? Why does she want to be with him? Is it her choice. I mean, she's kind of haughty and arrogant to other people at court. She sticks around for seemingly a decent amount of time until she, dies in childbirth with Shiera, who, by all means is also incredibly beautiful, heterochromia, strange, and witchy. I've seen it proposed that maybe Serenay is Shiera. Maybe it's a bit of a glamour thing going on.
It's like the female version of Bolton, kind of.
Yeah, maybe maybe that's why the
posing
necklace,
as your
the
own
necklace
child
is glamoring the eyes, something like that. I've seen a lot of different theories as to what is going on there. Maybe Serenay's much older. Maybe she really is from an ancient Valyrian house hailing from Valyria. Maybe she, really is witchy and has some ulterior motives. Who knows? But there really isn't much to go off of, so it's a lot of speculation.
You could see how an impoverished Valyrian line would want to marry into get some of that Targaryen power, because they're the only Valyrians with power.
For sure. You would think, at least I would think, though, that even impoverished, a Valyrian name would command more respect than just saying you're from Lys. But I think we've talked about this, and maybe the court has just dubbed her of Lys. Maybe they couldn't pronounce her last name, or maybe it's just to kind of show everyone that she is foreign and weird, because we see this happen again with other foreign women to kind of other them, like, Tiana of the Tower. We talk about Melisandre of Ashai, Quaithe of the Shadow, Taina of Myr. It's to kind of other them and be like, they're not from here, they're not one of us. And also, they're all maybe witchy, or they're all mysterious and have ulterior motives. So,
well, you definitely spent a lot of time on this in your video, but overall, where are you on Shiera Seastar being Quaithe versus the Alyssa Farman possibility, which also has a lot to be said for it?
I know. I like both theories a lot.
Same.
I feel very 50-50 on them. I think it could be either or. I've also seen some interesting theories. I don't know if they quite line up, but they're fun regardless, that, maybe Melisandre is the daughter of Shiera and Bloodraven. I've seen some stuff there.
So that's the old Radio Westeros theory from Yoke Boy, and I'm a big fan of it. Honestly, I really like it. Yeah.
It's fun. And so I feel like with, Serenay and with Shiera, there's so little to go off of that it feels like you can really go in any direction, but they definitely feel important. I don't think it's a coincidence that George never tells us what happens to her, even though she is one of the great bastards. So
it's almost as bad as jumping off of a tower into the sea after giving birth to a baby that no one's ever seen or knows where it is.
Right? It's like, I definitely don't think it's just a dead end. So
yeah.
What are your thoughts on, do you fall closer to the Shiera being Quaithe or Alyssa? What are your thoughts?
We did a Quaithe stream, and we entertained first the Ashara Dane option, which I think is less likely but worth talking about. I do think she's in the swamp with Howland posing as Diana Reed. But the Alyssa Farman and the Shiera Seastar options both make a ton of sense for different reasons, and so I am truly torn. I don't know. I think I would say 50-50. Like, I want them both to be true. I love the Alyssa Farman story. It's tremendous, and that one would be cool because then with her assisting Dany, she is helping her old girlfriend's like great granddaughter or something like that.
Yeah, she's like kind of righting the wrongs, she's rekindling it, and it's her bookend, so to speak.
And she's the one who stole the eggs that Dany hatched. So
exactly.
That would have a lot of poetic rhyming to it.
Well, it makes you wonder too, because I believe she sailed west of Westeros, and Corlys said that he thought he spotted her ship in Ashai. So it's like maybe she became aware of some information or some prophecy or something, and then was like, oh, these eggs, I need to lock in. These are important. I need to right the wrongs that I've done,
Yeah, like if Quaithe is Alyssa Farman, it just gives her more agency, because Alyssa was somebody who zagged so hard, defying the Targaryens, stealing eggs, just being the Targaryen's girlfriend is crazy. But then, sailing around the world when no one's done that from Westeros, like an incredible life. So if that person is still out there and she's Quaithe, it just makes Quaithe a lot more, it gives her more mystique. Like, Quaithe sailed around the world when she was, like, say it in reverse. She sailed around the world when she was young. She used to be a Targaryen princess's girlfriend. She stole dragon's eggs from Dragonstone. Like, that's all insane. But if she's
Well,
oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, well, and it makes sense too of her giving Daenerys these directions of where to go if she is this navigator that
Oh,
has
to go
sailed
west,
the
you must go
world.
east. Right.
Yeah.
Yes. She went west to go east, kind of. Yeah. But if Quaithe is Shiera Seastar, that's fascinating because, yeah, you have this trio of Bloodraven mentoring Bran, Shiera mentoring Dany, and then Mel mentoring Jon, and Mel might be the child of Bloodraven and Shiera. So that double triangle is pretty irresistible as well. And also this the thought of Bloodraven and Shiera, like, are they working together or at odds? Do they know of each other's existence? Like, those are all really interesting questions.
Exactly. And then you also have, this concept of, are they kind of playing 3D chess across the world with their different champions of, like, they're playing a whole other Game of Thrones, really. And you have, maybe Bloodraven with, Bran, and maybe Jon. You have, Shiera with Dany, and then you have, the Golden Company kind of backing Fagon. So it's like you have these three great bastards still, kind of moving things around and puppeting things. Obviously.
Right. Right. Bittersteels is still with us too, kind of. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, kind of symbolically. I mean, his skull is kind of with us, so.
I see the chat talking about Val. I don't think that Val has a secret origin. Do you?
No, I don't think Val has a secret origin. I do like the theory that maybe Melisandre came originally from Hardhome, that she has a secret origin in the North. And that's why her powers are stronger at the Wall. I think that's kind of fun. But for Val, I kind of see her more as, like we were saying earlier, a symbolic kind of fill-in for the Night's Queen in a way, to Jon's Night's King.
Definitely.
Especially with her kind of being this, symbolic leader of the wildlings, as the Night's Queen being this almost leader of the others in a way. I think it fits there. But what are some of the ideas on her having potentially a secret origin?
Well, just because she said, well, she would fit in at any court, and Val, like Valerian, and she's blonde and blue, or she's honey haired and blue. So I don't really think that's it. I think that she is a very interesting Night's Queen parallel. She's got the Weirwood brooch. She comes and goes in the haunted forest at will. When people are like, man, it's cold, she's like, no, it's not cold. It's cold when the others come. Almost like someone who's repping the others. And then, let's see, Jon has that really cool scene where he and her basically reenact Night's King and Queen. He sees her beyond the wall, thinks about how beautiful
eyes,
she is. Yeah. And then she calls his ghost to him, to her, like Night's Queen taking seed and soul from Night's King. So the whole thing is right there. Yeah, we love Val. Oh, and then she almost becomes the Lady of Winterfell, just like Night's Queen's descendants might have become Lady of Winterfell.
Exactly, yeah. I think, to me, that is what fits the most with her and her character.
Yeah, so it's just parallelism, guys. It's the same thing with, Mance and Rhaegar. They're not the same people. They're just both father figures for Jon who play music, and they have evil bard trope, trickster bard trope, let's say, parallels. So, yeah, not the same person. But so Calla Blackfyre is, we know she's betrothed to Aegor. That's Daemon's daughter. It's not said that they ever consummated that, but it is likely that is the female line of the Blackfyres from which Sarah and Illyrio's Sarah comes from, right?
Illyrio's Sarah and possibly Fagon. So
right.
That's what I think, but
Yeah, that would be the one. And we got a bunch of other Blackfyres. Bloodraven kills one at a council. So what's Bittersteel's deal? He's just kind of a bitter bitch. It's really not.
He's kind of a jerk. He hits a lot of the kind of Bracken tropes. I always think it's interesting, again, when someone takes on their own personal sigil. He kind of makes his own sigil that's like a, winged horse breathing fire. And it's not like a Pegasus, it's got like dragon wings. So it's like, he's clearly trying to lock in an identity of who he is. And I feel like we see this a lot with bastards. We see it with Daemon Blackfire too, of like he kind of starts to resent being a bastard and really wants to lean into the fact that he's not anymore, and build his own thing. So
Glidus has a 2-part video about how many legs does the Targaryen sigil have.
I saw that. It's great.
Yeah, he's funny. The guy watches every single scene of Game of Thrones where the sigil's been depicted. He's like, in season 6, for a second, there was Anyway, he pointed out the bitter steel horse because it's breaking George's biology rule where it's got 4 legs and 2 wings. But it's okay because it's really just symbolism. It's a coat of arms, not a physical creature that exists. So I did enjoy that.
Yeah. Yes. And I mean, too, you could talk about like centaurs in this world. Also, they technically would be, I mean, they have arms and 4 legs, but,
Centaurs make no sense. They're very silly. No. Yeah.
Yeah, very silly. But yeah, I just think it's interesting he took his own personal sigil. I also, in that video, thought it was very funny that there's like one instance in House of the Dragon where it's correct and it's on the armor, and then it's like the sigil is incorrect everywhere else, basically. They really lean hard into the technically incorrect sigil. It's just funny. It's funny.
Yeah, Glidus definitely went deep on it. He's talking about it was at the Dragon Pit when Danny rode Drogon. There were literally banners with both of them scattered around because some of them were real banners and some of them were CGI, and the CGI ones got copied from a different place, and so we have both two. That's pretty funny. I like to picture George getting like overly worked up about that somewhere.
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, it's very funny, but I do think these little details are sometimes important. But, when you're having something made by humans, there is, without a doubt going to be little things like this that, slip through the cracks. Like I think all the time about Ian McKellen wearing Converse in Lord of the Rings. And in certain shots, you see his white Converse shoes as he is dressed as Gandalf. Little things like that just make it through. So
that's hilarious. Yeah, I know about the Starbucks cup, not the Converses. Okay, so what was the other thing I was going to say?
We were talking about Aegor Rivers' bitter steel just being kind of cantankerous and mean.
He sure is bitter. I would like to know about how the duel went down between Bloodraven and Bitter Steel, where Bloodraven loses an eye but doesn't get like a big facial scar. It must have been like an eye slit of the helm kind of a thing, but...
Yeah, that feels very interesting. And I mean, they are just so written as opposites. It's like Bloodraven is kind of lanky and tall and slender and hides his face, with a hood because he's light sensitive. And, you have the opposite of, Aegor with his black hair, and he's, kind of strong. And I believe he's like described almost like a panther or something. Like he's very lean and muscular. And so it's interesting, that kind of juxtaposition of just two very opposite characters.
Yeah, they really had a lot to do, and I'll talk about. They got their own section in my Blackfire Rebellion video. I was going to bring up the fact that the Greek Hydra, it's not specified how many heads it has. It's different in different stories. So if it's symbolism and if it's an imaginary creature, it's okay to change the amount of limbs that it has. That's all. So let's talk about Bloodraven a little bit, at least the pre-Greenseer Bloodraven. My favorite Bloodraven theory before pre-Greenseer theory is that like he ate weirwood paste in Beric Stoneheart's cave, and it was given to him by the Ghost of Highheart. The Ghost of Highheart, we know that she is involved with the Targs for a long time. And I think she potentially could be on the Isle of Faces with with Lyanna and Rhaegar later. But yeah, the first question is, did Bloodraven activate his Greenseer gifts before going north of the Wall? I say yes, he did, because it really seems like he's got advanced spying capability as Hand of the King, right?
I think so for sure. And it reminded me of, and again, like I never want to shoot down people's theories, but sometimes there are ones that I just don't think are quite right. Someone on my Shiera Seastar video commented, maybe she was turned into weirwood paste and Brynden Rivers ate her like Bran ate Jojen. And I don't think so, but I appreciate the effort. I love the idea of it. I just don't think he would do that. But it would add an extra level of sadness to him telling Bran that he loved a woman once. If he had symbolically, consumed her in that way in order to gain powers, that would be insane.
That's I don't often say, wow, it's really been 14 years since we've had another book, but that really is.
It really is one of those moments where you're like, we have been waiting a little bit too long, I fear. I fear we're a little bit Winds of Winter brain rotted.
We're going loopy here. Yeah. We're wandering around the House of the Undying. We're not taking the right turns. We don't know where we are.
Mm-hmm.
I'm interested by Bloodraven because I always want to root for him. He's so cool, but he stands for things that I do not agree with, such as mass surveillance, sort of totalitarian rule by fear.
Very big brother.
The ends justify the means, basically. There's a lot of bad stuff, but we kind of like understand his perspective because I guess it just goes right back to the whole, how do you deal with prophecy? How do you deal with knowing that your family is responsible for all this stuff? Bloodraven is very realistic. A lot of people would take the Bloodraven, only the results matter. It's kind of like Stan is saying, if we have to burn children, whatever, it's better than the long night because the long night's going to kill all the children. I don't agree with that philosophy, and neither does George. Yeah. That's why he puts the whole Davos commentary in there. But Bloodraven, he's kind of like what people want to make Maegor the Cruel into. Like, oh, he was just utilitarian and blah, blah, blah. No, Maegor was insane. He was a psychopath. Bloodraven is utilitarian to an extreme, though.
Yeah. Of like, the ends justify the means, very much so. And I agree with what you said about that being paralleled in characters like Stannis sometimes, and especially like in characters like Melisandre too, of like, you're willing to do terrible things to get results. And I think bringing it back to what you said earlier, I do think it makes sense that he would have activated his green seeing abilities or some level of ability in order to do the level of like seeing and espionage he does, especially when you mentioned the thing about the possible weirwood arrows earlier. It's like, where would he get that information from? If not through some old god type, green seeing magic, weirwood, abilities. So I think
because Shiera is there, and one or both of them could have glass candles. If the Targs have them on Dragonstone, Bloodraven would have found them. Shiera might be using one. Like either one of them. There's multiple explanations for basically anything that Bloodraven does because of Shiera having links to all this magic. So it could be green seer stuff, or maybe it's more that she's eavesdropping on people,
I mean, it could be both. I mean, it does say that she helps him in his kind of espionage and in his stuff, and it's rumored that they are both sorcerers, which I think is interesting because we get a lot of mentionings of women being witches and sorcerers. It's a little more rare, I feel like, when we hear about men that are, so it's always kind of piquing my interest when we do hear that. So,
yeah, a bad time to start a rebellion when Shiera and Bloodraven were on the job, like...
Yeah, when they're both locked in and like you're saying, like Big Brother almost surveilling, everything. I think it kind of feels like the worst time to be going against them.
And we see that, of course, in the Mystery Knight. Just a hilarious book. Hilarious book. I love Maynard Plum is my favorite. Like, I just love all of his lines. Every line is gold. It's some of George's best writing. The last time we did a group read of the Mystery Knight, we just had so much fun.
Yeah, I mean, the little hints of like, oh, he, I'm related, but he wouldn't agree. He wouldn't say we are. Like these little like hints and inklings of like who he truly is. I mean,
he's so petty. He can't help but defend the Crown's actions even at the campfire when he totally could just let it go, but he has to pipe up.
Exactly. And then, the very obvious, what to me seems like this glamour magic with the brooch. I would not be surprised if, Shiera had a part in helping craft that. With she herself, having a weird, notable necklace that she always wears. Like it definitely seems in line for if she is a sorceress, if he's a sorcerer, that they would be dabbling in those things.
I just that it's that line, and I love the way the face is drawn in the graphic novel, where it's like, these rebels are probably wondering how much Lord Bloodraven knows about the rebellion. The answer to that last question is quite a lot, and he just looks all feral, and it's just like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm on top of it.
Yep, it is very comedic, honestly. And that's the thing that I really love about these novellas in general is the comedy of it and embracing it, while still, maintaining that it is a serious world and a serious story. So
Yeah, maybe we'll have you on when we do. So we did rereads of all three, but we did like all the symbolism analysis mixed in with the story analysis, and it really was a lot. Then we started over with just a read the story one, but we only did Hedge Knight. And I said that when we did Sworn Sword, I was going to have to get somebody on to do Rohan, because me and Sean will read female parts if they're short, but so maybe we'll have you on for that.
yeah, that sounds great. I feel like that is, and I love too that George is just like, I love Jaime and Brienne so much that I'm gonna even make their ancestors meet, and we're gonna continue this in every lifetime. It is really lovely.
Yeah,
So.
those parallels are terrific. The Jaime, Brienne, Duncan, Rohan stuff. We talked a bit about that for sure. Yeah. Again, high comedy.
Yes.
So
Yes. I mean, but like you're saying, especially in that third novella, it's just it just happenstance falling into an accidental almost rebellion. Like it is very comedic. So.
it's also like a quintessential American archetype, the horse girl. The chick that rides horses. Like it's very much an archetype, and I feel like George met a couple. Maybe had a crush on one. So Rohan is our horse girl. Yeah. And so is, Arya's like the young version of it. There's a couple more. Lyanna.
I mean, and it's not coincidental that her name then evokes Rohan and, the horse lords, so.
Certainly, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What happened in that stable? It stays in the stable. We don't know. But Dunk came out with a braid and a new horse. So who knows?
Who knows?
Those Cleganes are tall, though, living in the Westerlands. I mean,
they are for sure.
They came from somewhere.
Yep. I think so. They must have. So we were talking about the Great Bastards. Was there anything else we wanted to touch on them?
No, we're pretty much done. I will just ask you about the disappearance of, is it Gerald and Rohan who both disappear, or just Rohan?
Oh, that's a great question.
What's that mystery?
Yeah,
She marries Gerald the Golden later in life.
Yeah. And then we don't hear anything else, I don't
One
believe.
or both of them mysteriously disappears.
Yeah.
Let me look it up.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're basically done. We're at 3 hours. We can
Great.
get on out of here. Let's see.
We covered a lot, so,
Okay, this is Lady Lannister. Here we go. Eustace Osgrey died sometime before 219. She married Gerald the Golden. We don't know if it was before or after he became Lord of Casterly Rock in 213.
Yep. According to the maester, he loved her. She had 4 sons with him, twins.
And one of them, of course, is Tytos, the father of, Tywin.
And then, she disappeared under mysterious circumstances, less than a year after giving birth to her son, Jason.
Okay, so Rohan disappeared.
She did, yeah.
So what's that? Did she go back to romance Dunk, or did she join the Children of the Forest? Like, what's George doing with that loose end? He's obviously planned something there.
That is really interesting. I mean, I like the thought that she goes back to Dunk at some point. That would be a nice little bookend. But
But she's leaving her
yeah, I'm not.
children. She just
I
gave
know,
birth. Like,
right? Right? It feels very weird. It feels very strange for her to just disappear.
kind of like Robert proposing to Ned, like when they're in the middle of riding back to King's Landing, he's like, let's just hit the road, couple of
Yeah.
guys and some wenches and, screw being king.
Yeah, yeah, it is interesting. It's definitely I feel like left a mystery for a reason. But I'm not quite sure as to why. Do you have any specific thoughts?
I don't. I really don't. It just seems like something George is going to fill in more than that there's clues.
Hmm. Well,
Estella's thoughts on
hopefully.
Daenerys and Arion. Denora.
Oh, Daenora and Arian. I think maybe she wasn't too sad when her husband died. I think maybe that. I think maybe it was a little bit of a relief. I feel like she and her son Maegor were probably just like, let's settle down and have a quiet life. I mean, it is interesting that we don't really hear about what happens to them.
Maybe she
But I think
encouraged him,
she's
like, oh, yeah, no, that'll work. You should do that.
I wouldn't be surprised. I did like a whole little like very cinematic video over on my Instagram because I did a video on her and did a little photo shoot and did this little video where my concept was she was the one to bring him the wildfire.
Okay, cool.
Almost as like either a plea of like don't do this, or maybe it was an assurance of please do this. It's up to viewers' interpretations of what she thinks is what she thought was the best. But yeah, I mean, her father was also mad. I mean, but in like a way that he just seemed kind of like kooky, where he was, kind of running around the Red Keep naked and being a little bit of a goof. Whereas Arian obviously is a different type of mad, very cruel. So I think their match seems kind of odd, kind of sad. And I hope for her and her son that they did not endure any more tragedies after his death. But we don't know. So hopefully they weren't at Summerhall. I mean, maybe we don't hear about them again, so maybe
There's more people that died at Summerhall that we haven't heard the names of. So
exactly. So very bleak ending for them if that is the case. So hopefully Rohan was not at Summerhall. Hopefully that wasn't her and Dunk's rekindling of like, hey, let's have a meet cute again years later.
yeah, like I said, I don't even see any clues about it. It's just a hanging mystery that he's probably
Yeah.
planning on coming back to when he writes the ninth Duncan Egg novella at some point.
Yeah, but he's gotta go through all the other little adventures first, right? Doesn't he have to go to Dorne and
Oh
deal with
my
the Winter
goodness.
She-Wolves
Yeah, there's
and
the Winter Wolves and the Dornish trip. There's like at least 3 other Duncan Egg plots that he's referred to. And he said 7 Duncan Egg books, but there's already probably going to be more than that if
yeah.
George lives to be 150. What I'm hoping is that the Knight of the Seven Kingdoms show will rock and that he will simply hand the future plot lines to the show in
That's what
outline
I'm
form
hoping.
to make.
Yeah, I think that might be what has to happen. I mean, I'm sure he could get out some more, but I don't know if he will necessarily get out all of the ones that he wants to, present, especially if he is, also working on all of these other projects. So,
All of the other projects.
yeah.
Yes.
I
All
mean,
right. Well, on
it's a
that
lot on
note,
anyone's plate. So,
it's got the Meow Wolf Theater and
mhm.
there's Salsa Night there in Santa Fe.
And there's the train, and he just had lunch with Sybil over in Germany a couple days ago.
He
So,
does like showing her his little figurines and stuff. Yeah.
yeah, their friendship is adorable. Love them together. So, you know,
Cool. Well, I think the chat is well pleased. We had good attendance today, so thank you very much. Basically, 500 people watching mostly the whole time. So hopefully you
that's
get some
great.
new subs over to your channel. Of course, it's in the description in hyperlink blue text. So I think everybody saw that. But yeah, check out. You went like half an hour on Shiera Seastar, didn't you?
Yeah, I think it was at least like 20 minutes. And then, gonna be posting frequently. I'm hoping at least once a week, maybe twice a week. My next thing that I'm working on is going to be a very kind of base level introduction to the world for people who are new and want to get into it. And then I'm gonna be posting later this week a introduction to all of the new Targs for people who do know and want a little bit of a deeper dive.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
A little bit of content for everyone.
So you're going to be making reaction videos during the week, during the show?
I'm not sure if I'm going to do straight up reactions, but I do think I'm going to be doing recaps and discussions on some of the elements in the episodes for sure.
Okay, and then you're also pretty big on TikTok, right?
Yeah, I'm also posting over on TikTok and Instagram. I do different content that I post over there. YouTube is more for long format content. TikTok and Instagram are more like, cosplay photo shoots and things and memes and then short little lore videos and things. So
which is fun stuff that everyone likes. So check out Estella there, and it's all under your name, Estella Graves, right?
Yeah, I believe it's all Estella Graves. I think on Instagram, TikTok, there's like an underscore, Estella_Graves, but you should hopefully be able to find me.
Yep. That's how the search boxes work. So there you go. Terrific guest. Thank you very much. Everyone enjoyed what you brought today, and this was a fun, just running through the whole Targ family, kind of a good primer to get back into these Targ family politics. So, yeah.
Oh, for sure. I think it definitely prepares us for the show we're going to be getting soon. And thank you so much for having me on. This was great. We'll have to do this again soon because it was really fun to just be bouncing these ideas off of each other. And I now have a ton of videos that you've recommended that I need to go and watch to brush up on some of this deeper knowledge. So I will be doing that.
So there's a line in Ice and Fire. I think it's Maester Pycelle talking about, oh, this reminds me of blah, blah, blah. And someone else is like, when you get old, everything reminds you of something else. Yeah. When you've been doing it for 10 years, it's like, oh yeah, I made a video about that. Oh, I made a video about that. Like, as I mentioned in this video, I get tired of hearing myself say it, but
no, for sure. But it's good to know because sometimes, too, there are topics that you made a video about a long time ago that then need to be brought up again. Like I mentioned earlier of like, oh, I did this video on John's name being Aemon, and that's over on TikTok, but I didn't bring it over to YouTube. So it's like maybe that should be revisited now,
Going back to the well is a great idea. Previously, my biggest video was Great Empire of the Dawn. Then I basically reapproached all that stuff and made a what happened to a Shy video, and that's my biggest video in the last year. So people like a Shy.
You refine stuff, you refine it and you come up with new ideas and new theories. So it's not just retreading, it's, it's re-exploring these things and making new connections. So.
Well, there you go. I think it's cool that you do like serious cosplay and serious analysis both. It doesn't really seem to be, you're not like a cosplayer doing a little bit of analysis or an analyst doing a little bit of cosplay. You seem firmly committed to both. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, for better or worse. This wig is snatching back my hairline. But it is what it is.
You're out here living that life, man.
Yep. Yeah, if I show up for the Dunk and Egg stuff bald, just know, like I said, that I am just fully committed and in character. So
there it is. Cool, guys. Well, thank you, Estella. Thank you, everyone, for watching. And again, we'll see you with the Blackfire Rebellion this week. And then next week, I think we're going to go on a little early with a pregame show at 1 Pacific instead of 3, just to give people time to watch it, get hyped before the show will be that night, and then we'll do the post-game show. So we'll have 2 streams next Sunday, a pregame and a post-game. I'll announce it in the feed, and it's time. Did I say 2 weeks away? It's only 1 week away.
Yeah, it's coming up, so you got to start cooking.
I said it like 3 times in the intro. That's
videos,
hilarious.
So, yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I have ADHD. I have time blindness. It's a real thing. It is a real thing. Okay.
But yeah, it's coming up fast, so we got to be prepared.
Cool. Yeah, that's next week. All right. Well, it'll be fun. So,
yep.
Looking forward to it. All right, guys. See you later. Thanks for coming.
Great.